Chapter 1227, Create the Miracle. Chapter 1227, Create the Miracle, _. After a long time, Shuryen suddenly woke up. The cracks on his soul altar had closed a long time ago. Today, his 3 powers Upanishads were complete, but he still needed a little more to enter incipient God realm. Cultivating in Grace Mainland for years had given him a deeper level of knowledge of the death and life power Upanishad. He had advanced this combined power Upanishad, which gave him the chance to break through to the next realm. However, to break through to incipient God realm, he needed abundant earth and heaven energy to make his ethereal extent evolve to the incipient extent. He left the demon area. After a flash, he arrived at the center of Grace Mainland and entered the chasm battlefield that he had escaped that year. He went there and went deep underground. Tens of thousands of miles underground, Shuryen's co-soul and the Genesis fruit had been fusing inside a massive crystal. That crystal contained lethal earth and heaven formations that were naturally built with invincible power. If it were someone else intruding the place, even if he was at the immortal realm, he wouldn't be able to endure the attack from those formations that were created by Grace Mainland's origin. Unless the ancient continent was destroyed, those lethal death traps and formations were never going to vanish. However, Shuryen could move freely underground and go deeper into the earth core to reach the crystal that contained the co-soul. In other words, because his soul had fused with Grace Mainland, he was Grace Mainland. Each leaf of grass, river, and mountain on this continent was part of his co-soul. Descended by the crystal, Shuryen sat down cross-legged. The soul altar emerged from his head, his host's soul dancing restlessly. The brilliant, galaxy-like ethereal extent opened little by little and then covered his soul altar. The co-soul inside the crystal was like a dancing flame. It had the same aura as the host's soul. However, it had the impression of something very ancient and experienced. Shuryen's ethereal extent had many stars twinkling in the sky. The suns and moons appeared altogether. It had light and life as if it was a real world. Shuryen drew the aura from the Genesis fruit and took it to quench his body and clean his veins and soul altar. It changed his ethereal extent accordingly. Then, his pulse changed as he suddenly understood something. When he condensed the earth and heaven energy to finish his transformation, he had a magical feeling that he could move Grace Mainland as he pleased. It would be like Desolate, the ancient continent that never stopped moving. As soon as this thought popped up in his head, he tried to think about moving the entire planet. Amazingly, Grace Mainland began to move. Shuryen was astounded. This ancient continent was drifting in the dark universe at a stable and fast speed. Shuryen was absorbed in this marvelous experience. The host's soul in his soul altar and the co-soul in the crystal glowed marvelously. They transmitted a soul energy fluctuation that matched with the ancient continent. Their energy had a mysterious power that seemed to be able to change the ancient continent. Grace Mainland was in a very remote area in the universe that was far away from other star areas, as if it was abandoned there. And it happened that way. The heavenly monster tribe used to suffer terrible defeats. To prevent their race from coming to an end when others attacked their ancestral star, the ancestors of heavenly monster tribe had moved Grace Mainland away at any cost. They had sealed the star and delivered it to a desolate area. There was no other life star or warrior lived in this area. Thus, no one was going to rediscover it here. And today, Grace Mainland in this dark and isolate area began to move. A magical space energy arose from inside the planet and entered the clouds of the atmosphere. Right after that, a massive space crack opened. That space crack was like a massive mouth with many brilliant outer space streamers and the endless dangers. Grace Mainland flew into the space crack and soared like a shuttle through spaces, heading to an unknown destination. All of a sudden, ordinary humans and warriors living on Grace Mainland recognized a terrifying phenomenon. The sky didn't have the sun, moon, and stars anymore. The entire world became dark. From time to time, they saw meteors shoot over their heads, flash, and then disappear with formidable energy. Each ordinary human living on Grace Mainland recognized the danger. This change of earth and heaven had terrified them. The warriors were also aghast. However, They found out that the earth and heaven energy on Grace mainland didn't decrease due to this phenomenon. Quite the contrary, the earth and heaven energy on this continent was still increasing. It became thicker day by day that made the warriors jump up and cheer in joy to give thanks for the favor from the sky. However, the world was now dimly lit as the sun, moon, and stars had disappeared. They still felt worried. Fear hung above their heads. They couldn't ease their minds even when they were cultivating. The leaders of many clans gathered and discussed. They wanted to know what was happening to this planet. Unfortunately, no one could tell what was going on. Monster Dragon Star. Azure Dragon and the 4 monsters had left. Ghost Hunter was now lying in the valley in his true form. He still had many lightning beams moving on his body. As time ticked by, the lightning crawling on his body disappeared slowly. Ghost Hunter didn't change his position and was still trying to refine the blood that he had just received. He felt stronger after every second. He didn't know Azure Dragon. He only knew that Azure Dragon had applied the blood sacrifice of Heavenly Monster Tribe on him, which had boosted him from level 12 to the early phase of level 13. He was now as strong as a first sky of incipient God realm. All of this was because of the blood he had received, the 5 drops of blood. He had received the inheritance of the Heavenly Monster Mountain Range, so he knew what the blood sacrifice was. He also knew that man was a precursor of Heavenly Monster Tribe. He was struck by awe. Because the Heavenly Monster Tribe of the Monster Clan was born in the immemorial time, Azure Dragon must have lived for 100,000 years or even longer. Ghost Hunter admired Azure Dragon a lot since he was an ancient figure that had lived for so long. He wondered how strong Azure Dragon was. As the 5 drops of blood had merged into his body entirely, his monster body became much stronger. He knew that the ancestor of Heavenly Monster Tribe cared about him. He didn't know why this opportunity came to him, but he knew he should grip it tightly and make himself stronger. At a corner of Monster Dragon Star, Sang Yun's round face showed that he was upset. He looked at an elder and asked, "Elder Tian-Yin, why has the holy ancestor not carried out the blood sacrifice for me?" Tian-Yin had a close relation to Sang Yun. Sang Yun saw Azure Dragon disappear with the 4 elders, but only the 4 elders came back and stayed in Monster Dragon Star. Azure Dragon didn't reappear. Sang Yun found it suspicious. Well, Holy Ancestor has just woken up. I think his power hasn't recovered yet. After he gets better, of course, he will carry out the blood sacrifice for you. Tian-Yin wore a heavy face and begrudgingly told lies. He knew Trang Yun's characteristics, so he was afraid that Sang Yun would have his mentality distorted when he knew the truth, which would make him do something harmful to the tribe. Thus, he had to conceal this. Elder Tian-Yin, your power seems to have decreased a lot too. What happened when you guys left with Holy Ancestor lately? Sang Yun was a little sensitive. Holy Ancestor didn't have enough power, so we had to use the secret technique of our tribe to create a formation to boost him up with some power from us, Tian-Yin sighed discreetly. Sang Yun frowned, nodded skeptically, but he didn't pry furthermore. However, he had a knot in his heart. Devil Blood Star. Zhuosher was cultivating in the Zhua family's manor in Divine Land City. She was making quick progress. Surprisingly, she had almost reached second sky of ethereal god realm now. Today, she was still cultivating earnestly that she had almost forgotten herself. Azure Dragon, the Heavenly Monster Tribe's holy ancestor, suddenly appeared in the chamber where she was cultivating. It was like a shadow turning into something real. Zhuosher was cultivating, so she didn't recognize Azure Dragon's appearance. She was immersed in her magical realm. Deep in Azure Dragon's eyes were his old memory. He eyed Zhuosher, his face loving. He thought, I can't believe this little girl has the blood of the Black Tortoise. She's the descendant of the Black Tortoise. Haha, he finally has a successor. It's too bad that she has the human body. Should I trigger the power of her blood so she will become a real member of our Heavenly Monster Tribe? He kept silent, thinking and hesitating. Zhuosher's case and Shurian's case were similar. They had human bodies with immortal demon blood and heavenly monster blood. On the day Shurian had completed his blood replacement, he had officially become the immortal demon warrior. The blood running in his veins was all immortal demon blood. However, the immortal demon warriors were like human warriors. They used the soul altar to cultivate, which was different from monster warriors who had only the monster soul and cultivated their monster bodies to level up. Shuryen and Zhuoshur were different from each other because of this feature. Azure Dragon was hesitant because he wasn't sure if he would break Zhuoshur's soul altar after he had triggered the black tortoise's blood in her body. It would affect her realm and cultivation base terribly. And now, although Zhuoshur couldn't create the monster body, she had the power and the blood from Black Tortoise that had cleared all obstacles and the bottleneck in her cultivating progress. She could almost increase her power unlimitedly. She could be deemed the hybrid between Heavenly Monster Tribe and the human clan. Just like Ghost Hunter, she was a different race. Azure Dragon found her when his soul covered the surrounding stars. He was astounded. First, he found Ghost Hunter, a member of his new race. Then, he found Zhuoshur, the warrior who had the Black Tortoise's inheritance, but she hadn't had a monster body yet. She still used her human body. Azure Dragon thought that the mighty heaven had really cared about the Heavenly Monster Tribe as he continuously got surprised. He was so happy to see his clan thriving after he had woken up. Nah, I'll just try. Let's see what God wants. He pondered for a long time and then decided to trigger the Black Tortoise's blood in Zhuoshur's body. He wanted to see the miracle that God had given his clan. Azure Dragon opened his mouth to spurt out a blue lightning ball. It then covered Zhuoshur's body and emitted lightning bolts to stimulate the Black Tortoise's blood in her body. Azure Dragon became weaker one more time. He paled and forced a smile. Half a month later, the human blood in Zhuoshur's body was gone. It was replaced by the Black Tortoise's blood. Zhuoshur had entered second sky of ethereal god realm instantly. When the Black Tortoise's blood filled her body, a strange tortoise shell appeared on her back after a bizarre explosion. Now, she had the aura of the primal, chaotic time of the world, which had rocketed her overall power. She still had a human body, but the blood chi and power in her god body were similar to the Heavenly Monster Tribes. Her soul altar wasn't broken. It had a marvelous change instead. Her host's soul had turned into a monster soul. Chapter 1228, Chaos Appears. Chapter 1228, Chaos Appears, _ Ancient God Star Area. This star area was the God Clan's base star area. It was extremely vast with tens of thousands of life stars, mineral stars, solar stars, and moon stars. The God Clan had bases around those stars. Ancient God Star Area had 7 sea territories that were similar to the sea territory of Fantasy Mist Star Area. They had many space passages. The 7 sea territories were situated in 7 directions of Ancient God Star Area. Each sea territory had many life stars up to 10. Those life stars had many battleships of the God Clan on standby. Also, war chariots and battleships continuously moved in and out of the space passages. The 7 sea territories of Ancient God Star Area were the liveliest areas of the entire universe. Every time the God Clan invaded a star area and turned it into its backyard, it seized a lot of materials and transported them back to Ancient God Star Area through those passages. The materials were transported to Ancient God Star Area every year. The God Clan categorized them so the big families could take them and create pellets and weapons. It made each family of the God Clan extremely rich, and even distant children of the family could be fully equipped. The 7 sea territories connected to dozens of star areas. Most of them were the God Clan's vassals where they had invaded before. The God Clan had built bases in those star areas too. They had subdued the warriors of each star area and made them committed and loyal. They stayed there to supervise the transportation of precious materials like divine crystals from that star area to Ancient God Star Area. However, when the God Warriors came back from the 7 sea territories, they didn't bring a lot of materials. They only brought sharp and lethal weapons. The God Warriors based in dozens of star areas were summoned back to their families through the sea territories. They stayed and adjusted their formation in the sea territories, meeting with the leaders of their families. Countless battleships were gathering in the sea territories. A massive battle was about to sweep through the entire cosmos. While many god warriors were resting and accumulating power in the sea territories, they found some flows of formidable soul energy move through the sea territories and head to their ancestral star, ancient god continent. In a sea territory where many god clansmen were partying before preparing for the Great War, they suddenly quieted down, exchanged looks, and watched the sky in fear. Then, they saw a meteor shooting out of a space passage, sparking flames along the way. Inside the meteor, they saw a dormant man. With intimidating energy, he flew directly to ancient god continent. "Elder Spark is back," screamed a god warrior in awe. He then wore a respectful face and kneeled down to bow to the meteor. Many god warriors stopped drinking and partying. They kneeled down to show their respect to the vague figure inside the meteor. "I didn't expect that Elder Spark was still healthy. The last time he showed himself was 3,000 years ago. At that time, he was at peak of incipient god realm. It has been so long that my family didn't get any news from him. We thought that he had fallen a long time ago. No one ever thought that he would come back now. Oh, if he shows up, it seems like the Elder Committee considers this war crucial. Yeah, it has been 10,000 years. It's normal that they re-challenge us. Anyway, we'll be the winners in the end. Of course, in this vast sea of stars, which clan or star area can defeat us? Currently, our clan's power has surpassed the Bloodthirsty forces 10,000 years ago. Even God can't break the eternal prosperity of our clan." All the warriors of the God clan were full of confidence. It was the pride they had accumulated for 10,000 years. Throughout the recent 10,000 years, the God clan had won almost all of the battles they had fought. Every star area they had passed had become their territory. They had been the winners for too long that they instinctively thought that they would not lose. The god Zenith on ancient god continent. A flaming meteor fell grumblingly on the ground. It looked like a smoking and flaming coffin. However, it was so cold. A member of the god clan who looked exhausted and senile with a pair of bright eyes was standing by the door of the shrine. He was watching the falling meteor. Inside that cold meteor was a sleeping old man. Then, his brows twitched. Slowly, he woke up and opened his mouth to suck the air. The meteor shrank into a small cold rock that fell into his mouth. The old man swallowed it and magically, his energy was boosted. He then looked at his old friends waiting at the door of the ancient god shrine. "Spark, it has been 3,000 years. I didn't think that you were still alive." An old god warrior sobbed. "Fengju, you're still healthy. Of course, I can't die that early." Spark gazed at him and then murmured, "Are we all here yet? Can we start the meeting now? As you arrived, we're all here." Fengju smiled and then stepped into the ancient god shrine. Spark snorted and stepped into the ancient god shrine. Inside the shrine, many senile god warriors were sitting. They all looked 1 foot away from the grave. However, strangely enough, the vitality was abundant in this hall. If someone could use the soul consciousness to sense, he would have found an earth-shaking life magnetic field here. "Spark is here. We can start now," said Fengju. After 3 days, the God clan's fleet that had been anchored in the 7 sea territories for a long time started to move like dragons flying. They all began to go to the space passage. Hollow Fearsome Star Area, the Goo God Sect's territory. Today, in the far west of Hollow Fearsome Star Area, a space passage was forcefully torn. Dozens of battleships from the God clan quietly emerged. As soon as they arrived, the God clan's battleships scattered and started to slaughter in Hollow Fearsome Star Area. They showed no mercy and killed all warriors on the life stars standing in their way. However, they spared the ordinary humans. They swaggered like a sharp knife and killed all things related to the Goo God Sect and Hollow Fearsome Star Area. They madly invaded and destroyed Hollow Fearsome Star Area. They had terrified the Goo God Sect. The sect then had to send out all of their elite forces to battle against the God Clan. The same thing happened to Prosaic Star Area, Sirius Star Area, Black River Star Area, and Earth-Ice Star Area. All the forces that had joined the battle in Agate Star Area were invaded by the God Clan in a large-scale attack. The 12 families of the God Clan had launched their revenge attack at the same time. They had even summoned warriors based in the other star areas. They wanted to bath those star areas in blood to show them the price of trespassing the God Clan's prestige. Creatures had to live in misery at every corner of the vast universe. The Earth-clearing war had started at the same time in the major star areas. The Gu God sect, the Jiao family, and the Wu family felt a tremendous pressure that they had never had before. Finally, they knew how the God Clan could rule their star area and other star areas for 10,000 years. Hollow Fearsome Star Area had several hundred life stars with around 100 billion ordinary civilians, around 10 million warriors, of which there were dozens of thousands of King God Realm warriors, several hundred ethereal God Realm warriors, and not more than 20 incipient God Realm experts. Their situation was similar to any other high-level star areas. The God Clan's force invading Hollow Fearsome Star Area consisted of around 10,000 warriors. However, they had defeated the Gu God sect continuously. The God Clan had overwhelming advantages in battleships, individual fighting competence, the powers Upanishad, and the number of experts. Each warrior of the God Clan had powerful armor and weapons in addition to high-grade pellets and medicines. Each member of the God Clan had at least one or more divine secret treasure. Although they were at level 1 or 2 divine grade, they were so powerful. At the same time, the Gu God sect's disciples at King God Realm had only sacred grade weapons, and not many of them had more than one item. The Gu God sect couldn't compete with others in terms of weapons, pellets, or armor. They were in a dangerous situation. As the God warriors were experiencing blood battles, they had a lot of strategies and plans. At the same time, although they had just 10,000 warriors, they had several hundred ethereal God Realm warriors with exquisite powers Upanishads. After 10,000 years of accumulation, the God Clan had overwhelmed other star areas completely in terms of power Upanishad, secret weapons, armor, pellets, and fighting experiences. Hollow Fearsome Star Area, Prosaic Star Area, and Serious Star Area were defeated badly. Under the fierce attack of the God Clan, they had lost many warriors. Some star areas even had a worse situation than Agate Star Area before. The general picture of the universe had spread to every corner. The forces that had different plans immediately disregarded the thought of turning their back to the God Clan. The forces that depended on the God Clan became quieter than usual. They had asked their subordinates to stay within their star area. As soon as the God Clan had shown their fangs, the entire universe was shaken and people were frightened. God bless Star Area. This area was the territory of the Imperial Dark Tribe. Throughout the 10,000 years, this place was one of the few places that the God Clan didn't disturb. It was still the same at the current time. Although the God Clan was explicitly invading the major star areas now, their battleships hadn't reached this area. It seemed like they were following some tacit agreement. There were a group of imposingly majestic palaces built in a valley filled with divine crystals in the God-blessed mainland, the ancestral star of Imperial Dark Tribe. Those palaces were built between mountains and rivers that were like massive, complex formations. Surrounding the palaces were many chasms leading directly to the underground. The gorges fumed out thick and pure dark qi, which the Imperial Dark Tribe used to feed their souls and bodies. Standing inside one of those chasms was a sacrificial platform built of white bones. This sacrificial platform was octagonal with 8 stone pillars where countless evil souls from the underworld were winding and wailing. Audrey sat neatly on the platform, her lips parted to take in the beams of pure energy from the evil souls, which would then benefit her soul. As the 8 pillars had billions of evil souls, even if each beam of soul energy from them was feeble, taking the energy from a massive number of souls was still thrilling. Sitting by the sacrificial platform was a glamorous woman. She and Audrey looked very alike. Apparently, they had a bloodline connection. Today, she suddenly opened her eyes to look at the sky. A bolt of lightning flashed by the horizon of the God-blessed mainland. That bolt fell directly to her area. A man walked out of the bolt. He looked peculiarly thin and archaic, but he had a pair of crimson eyes. He stood by the edge of the chasm. He smiled, flashed, and then reappeared by Audrey's sacrificial platform. The gorgeous woman coldly looked at him and then snorted. Well, it's rare to see the chief of the death force of the Bloodthirsty force visiting our Imperial Dark Tribe. Xianhe, you swaggered into this area that year. Everywhere you went, blood streamed into the river. Life stars turned into dead stars. Do you want to bring death to our Imperial Dark Tribe this time? It has been so many years and you still hate me? Xianhe rubbed his nose and smiled evilly. We used to have romantic times, didn't we? I didn't hate you even when you joined the God Clan to kill my force. Why are you still sulky? The woman gave a faint smile. I had begged you to help the Imperial Dark Tribe. Who turned me down? Nah, we're not going to talk about the old story. Xianhe waved his hand, his crimson eyes sparkling magically. Adele, I'm here today to talk to your brother. I want to meet him. Chapter 1229, Return with a Whole Life Star. Chapter 1229, Return with a Whole Life Star, _ The Imperial Dark Tribe's holy land in God-blessed mainland. At the bottom of a deep chasm, Xianhe talked calmly. Adele, I'm here today to meet your brother. Adele's beautiful eyes had a mocking gleam as she sneered. Well, then you came to the wrong place. After Bloodthirsty had enticed him, he agreed to give up the chief of the Imperial Dark Tribe position to leave with him. Afterward, he stopped being a member of our Imperial Dark Tribe. He hasn't returned to Imperial Dark Tribe yet. He didn't even send me a message. I'm not going to buy that, smiled Xianhe. Adele put on a cold face and said indignantly, he's the leader of your soul control force. You can't contact him and you're here to ask to see him? Ridiculous. I've used our own method to contact him, but I couldn't find him. The ones I've met recently are all his clones. I want to meet the real version of him. Xianhe was persistent. I'm sorry I can't help you, replied Adele coldly. Xianhe just laughed, but he seemed to not want to hang on this. He knew that Adele and the Soul Control Chief had a subtle connection. He thought that Adele would definitely notify him and that bastard should know why Xianhe had come to find him. The God Clan is attacking all the major star areas forcefully. What do you think about this? Xianhe rubbed his chin and said with an evil influence, you and the God Clan had walked the same path that year. Do you want to bind to them this time too? Adele's bold brow furrowed as she sank in her thoughts. She didn't answer him. The God Clan is no longer the God Clan that year. That year, God Clan had united the forces everywhere to strike down our bloodthirsty force. After they defeated us, the God Clan didn't keep the agreement to share the universe with you guys. They have been the overlords. This time, will you repeat your deed? Xianhe said with a dark face. If your bloodthirsty force had restrained your force, you wouldn't have fallen into this situation. You reaped what you sowed. Adele smiled faintly. Pondering for a while, she said, our Imperial Dark Tribe won't participate in the competition between you guys. I hope you would burn the Jade and common stone altogether. Ha ha ha. Xianhe laughed, his face happy. Excellent. It's the best if your Imperial Dark Tribe won't interfere with us. Pausing for a while, he continued, I got a gift for your daughter this time. When he finished, he touched the void. The dark clouds started to gather and cover the thousands of miles around. Screeching and wailing noises came out from the dark clouds. Shortly after, dozens of thousands of evil souls arose from the clouds. Adele's bright eyes had a 5-colored divine light. She was shocked, indeed. Those evil souls were at original God realm or ethereal God realm. 10 of them were 100 jung tall. They looked like 10 mountains with ferocious auras. Those 10 souls were the host souls of incipient God realm experts. Xianhe pointed at Audrey and smiled. My niece is going to break through to the incipient God realm, so I gave her this gift. Dozens of thousands of evil souls screeched and cried. They rolled together with the dark cloud to Audrey. However, they were bound by an invisible force. They wailed and struggled pitifully to get rid of the restraint. The 10 souls of the incipient God realm experts released ear-piercing shouts that were full of humiliation and unwillingness. No matter how hard they tried, they couldn't get rid of Xianhe's bind. In the next second, they turned into gray shadows and entered the chaotic ethereal extent above Audrey's head. The savage screeching and wailing arose from Audrey's body as if billions of angry creatures shouting and cursing the sky. A flow of intent domain was created by evil resentment that could erase all kinds of soul. Audrey's exquisite face reddened. She glowed in health even though she still looked cold and the vitality on her body was feeble. After the ethereal extent above her head was added with dozens of thousands of evil souls, it slowly became a real matter. Adele eyed her daughter, her face wearing perceptible happiness. However, she was still stiff and cold as usual. Xianhe, it has been 10,000 years, and you finally did something a human should do. Ha ha ha. Xianhe laughed and turned into a bolt of lightning that entered the dark cloud. His voice came from the cloud. Tell your brother that our master's successor is about to enter Agate Star Area. As the Soul Control Chief, he will know what to do. Adele just snorted and didn't say anything. Shadow Ghostly Prison. The sealed space passages like shining lines floated in between many space cracks. The void in this area looked like a strange mirror that had many fine cracks. After the Ascot's invasion, this area was temporarily abandoned. There was no creature or warrior cultivating here. This place was also the sea territory of Agate Star Area. The sea territory was the entrance to a star area. Whenever a star area was formed, the sea territory was slowly but magically formed too. It was like a masterpiece of God to help many star areas connect to each other. The thick barriers stood between the star areas to separate them. Just like Agate Star Area, Fiery Star Area, and Fantasy Mist Star Area, although they were adjacent, they couldn't visit each other because of the natural space barriers. There were star areas without barriers, but they were too far from each other. Even successful experts with space power Upanishad needed a long time, like dozens of years, or even hundreds of years, to travel through such a long distance. Thus, when people from different star areas wanted to contact each other, they had to use some other methods. The sea territory was the best method. It was the natural area that the mighty heaven had gifted each star area. Each of the space passages was a space teleport formation that nature had created, which could allow someone to cross billions of miles in just a blink of an eye. Shadow Ghostly Prison was the sea territory of Agate Star Area. Today, a massive, chaotic space crack suddenly ballooned. After dozens of seconds, that space crack had enlarged hundreds of times. Then, a dazzling wave of light swarmed over. The space passage couldn't bear such power, so it shattered directly. Countless small pieces shot out everywhere in outer space like meteors. A beautiful life star suddenly emerged from the broken space passage and entered Shadow Ghostly Prison. This life star had the light curtain of natural energy. The arrangement of mountains, lakes, and rivers on this continent was like a lively drawing with strong vitality. That life star wasn't motionless. It continued to drift in Shadow Ghostly Prison and then accelerated. Eventually, it stopped by Fighting Star of the Fighting League. We finally see the sun and moon. Light. Finally, we have light. What happened? Dunno. Many warriors and ordinary civilians were watching the sky, their faces astounded. They seemed to be sealed in a dark world. Without the changes of sun and moon, they didn't know how much time had passed. They only knew that this kind of time passing had made them so worried. They thought that doomsday was coming. Inside the planet, a young man opened his eyes, which had billions of tiny stars twinkling. It looked like he had taken in all the stars in the sky into his eyes. He grinned and mumbled to himself, "I'm finally here." Dash. A corner of Monster Dragon Star. A wave of vibes suddenly expanded in Heavenly Monster Tribe's holy ancestor's heart. His eyes brightened as he laughed. He suddenly flew out of Monster Dragon Star and headed to Shadow Ghostly Prison. He didn't cultivate space power Upanishad, but his speed was a lot faster than the Heavenly Monster Tribe expert who cultivated space power. In a blink, he was able to pass dozens of life stars or billions of miles. When he was traveling to Shadow Ghostly Prison, he didn't know that the one he was looking for had left for Devil Blood Star already. The marvelous space teleport formation on Devil Blood Star. The electric beams arose and created a wonder like a heavenly net covering the entire formation. When the fierce energy expanded, a young man emerged from that formation. Some ethereal god realm warriors of the demon clan guarding the formation jerked up in surprise. However, when they wanted to check out the one who had just appeared, they found no aura there. Dash. Divine Land City. The Shi family and the Yang family lived in the city master's building in the center of the city. The members of the Yang and the Shi family stayed and cultivated here. They also had a change and enjoyed power and wealth too. Yang Tian Emperor was cultivating in the chamber hundreds of meters underground. This secret chamber was built of divine crystals and many strange stones that could draw earth and heaven energy. It was filled with energy as the streams of milky white energy floated everywhere like spirit snakes. Yang Tian Emperor was taking in this kind of energy. His brows suddenly arched. He got up and disappeared from the stone chamber. At the east wing of the city master's building, Shi Jian was teaching his family's juniors, including Shi Tian Luo, Shi Tian Xiao, "You brats. You're living in wealth, so you don't cultivate wholeheartedly. Don't you feel ashamed when you face Shi Yan?" Shi Jia blew his beard and thundered, "Shi Yan has risked his life so you can get what you have today. But little Yan is also a member of the Yang family. Look at the Yangs. Yang Mo has almost reached King God realm. How about you? You're a bunch of lazy rascals. If you continue like this, you will lose our Shi family's pride." Shi Tian Luo, Shi Tian Ku, and Shi Tian Ling had faces that they were supposed to make to a funeral. They sighed and didn't dare to retort. They felt so upset. How could they compare to the Yang family's members? Blood Devil had considered the Yangs as his relatives. He had opened the blood pond for them to cultivate. He had given them so many rare and precious pellets and secret treasures. That was why the Yang family had been enhanced greatly. Their bloodline was already strong. With those favors, how could they compare to them? They had their own objections, but no one dared to voice them. Elder Han Feng smiled discreetly while pretending to nod in agreement with the others. Sometimes, he added, "Sigh, we're all human, but why we're so different?" Young Master Yan had his first beam of energy when he was 17 years old. You had a better start and see how far you're left behind now? Well, I'm afraid I shouldn't point it out. Who dares compare with Shi Yan? You. Shi Tian Ku retorted. Han Feng stepped back and forced a smile. Sigh, as we're talking about him, it has been a long time since we last saw him. As his realm is higher and his position is not ordinary, I'm afraid that he doesn't have free time to talk to his grandfather, Shi Jian said with a lonely face. Well, am I not here? All of a sudden, a clear voice arose when a black shadow appeared in the room. Shi Jian quivered. His old eyes couldn't help but become watery. However, he scolded, "You little devil. So you think your wings are so strong that you don't need this grandfather anymore." Chapter 1230, Fame. Chapter 1230, Fame, _. Shi Yan's eyes were bright as he beamed at the people in the room. Shi Jian was still hot-tempered. He was frank, tough, and eager to learn new things. He wasn't satisfied that the Shi family had lower realms than the Yang family. Although he knew it was because of the innate talents, he was still persistent. Despite many failures, he was still very determined. The Shis and the Yangs lived together in the city master's building. They lived in harmony as if they were actually one body. The Yang family had never compared themselves to the Shi family, and they didn't consider the Shis as outsiders. The young generations of the two families were sworn brothers and sisters. Shi Jian and Yang Feng often drank with each other. In conclusion, their relationship was really good. Anyway, Shi Jian just didn't want the juniors to be lazy. Because this area was Agate Star area with many experts. Because this area was Devil Blood Star. It wasn't their homeland. Their vision was widened when they came to Agate Star area. Now, they knew how vast this universe was and how many countless intimidating experts there were. Now, they knew that they were small and weak. Because of Shi Yan's dazzling and outstanding talents, and because Shi Yan was from the Shi family, Shi Jian was never going to let the Shis dirty his fame. Thus, he had always been tough and persistent. He thought that he and the Shi family's younger generation could do better to help Shi Yan in the future. Also, it was because Shi Jian felt that he had become powerless. He didn't want to become a burden or a fragile object to be protected. To this old man with a high self-esteem, it was humiliating that he couldn't help his grandchildren fight and even required their protection. Nah, I always missed Grandpa. When I came back, you were the first one I remembered. Shi Yan hurried to comfort him. Shiryen knew that Shi Jian was the one who had the biggest influence on him. Young Tian Emperor couldn't compare to him. When he was with the Shi family, Shi Jian had taken care of him all the time. Although he looked strict, he had carefully protected him. Why did you disappear after that battle? How is your body? Did you get hurt? Shi Jian suddenly remembered that detail, so he arched his brow and asked, "Where did you go?" "I returned to our homeland. I went back to the Merchant Union, Sky Meteor City, and our Shi family." Shiryen looked absorbed in his memories. Everything in Sky Meteor City is the same. But today, the Shi family is just a legend in that city. Our house is still there under thick layers of dust. He had visited Sky Meteor City and the Shi family's building in the corner of Sky Meteor City. Things hadn't changed much. It was because the legend of the Shi family was still told in that city. The legend of his performance in Sky Meteor City when the Shi family subdued the Bei Ming family had become the hot topic for the warriors there to discuss. A long, long time ago, the entire Shi family and Zhou family had moved to the Endless Sea and their houses became empty. However, the forces in Sky Meteor City didn't dare to seize the buildings of the Shi and the Zhou families. "You went back to our homeland?" Shi Jian was surprised. Shi Tianluo and Han Feng were so astounded. Homeland. It meant crossing star areas. But their homeland was exhausted now. Although they were nostalgic, no one had thought of returning and cultivating in their own homes. When they left that year, the energy in their homeland was so diluted that it wasn't suitable for them to cultivate anymore. Without rich earth and heaven energy, the mines didn't have divine crystals and the land didn't grow spirit grass and herbs. Without those magical things, the warriors couldn't comprehend their powers deeper. It was the reason they had to leave their homeland. "Yeah, I had returned to our homeland." It's time to go home," said Shiryen. Everybody looked baffled. "It's different from the time we left. You will understand when you come back home." Shiryen had an affectionate tone in his voice. When they were still in Grace Mainland that year, he absolutely wanted to leave. He had come to Raging Flame Star area with Bao Ao and Jie, struggling to survive. He had risked his life many times just to have a life star so he could deliver his family from the homeland. After that, they could continue to cultivate. Grace Mainland's condition couldn't bother them anymore. The warrior's longevity was related to his realm. If they stayed in Grace Mainland, their realms couldn't break through quickly, so one day, they would have naturally died. Muyudai was in this situation. Since her realm was stuck, her longevity was limited. Although she had energy in her body, her life magnetic field was slowly drained and she was getting weaker. Eventually, she had to return to nothingness. Every time a warrior broke through to the new realm, besides the transformation of his body, his soul and life magnetic field would enhance altogether. Only continuous breakthroughs gave them eternal youth and allowed them to maintain their life magnetic fields. Shiryen had experienced all kinds of hardship to move his families to Agate Star area and build Divine Land City in Devil Blood Star so they could have new homes and cultivate. But from today, everything was about to come to the starting point one more time. He wanted to bring his families back to Grace Mainland. Thinking about all the things that had happened, Shiryen thought it was a dream. Shi Jian, Han Feng, and the others were filled with surprise. They didn't know what he meant, so they tried to find hints from his face. "Finally, you're back." Blood Devil's voice came from outside. Shiryen couldn't hear many people breathing. They didn't know for how long the experts on Devil Blood Star had gathered here. Shiryen chuckled and said to Shi Jian, "We should go out to talk." Many people were in the City Master's building of Divine Land City. Blood Devil, Fu Wei, Feng Han, Lin Xian, Yang Tian Emperor, Leona, Fei Lan, Ka Tua, Xia Xin Yen, Zi Yao, and others had packed the place and were looking at him. Shiryen didn't conceal his aura when he got back through the teleport formation by the blood pond. Naturally, his whereabouts were reported. Shadows gathered in the place. They had different expressions. Some looked happy and some looked thrilled. They looked at Shiryen as he was the only character here. "Oh yes, I'm back," Shiryen beamed. Although the danger in Agate Star area had been temporarily avoided, many forces still stayed on this planet. Some forces had left, the forces that didn't belong to the Potion and Tool Pavilions Union. Feng Han, Lin Xian, and their forces that had a close relationship decided to stay in Devil Blood Star for the time being. They wanted to observe further. After they could confirm the situation of the universe, they were going to leave. The God clan had terrified them. Yan Qi, Jing Yuan, and the other clans and forces had left Devil Blood Star, but they didn't dare to stay far away. They decided to stay on the life stars close to Devil Blood Star. They maintained the connection with Devil Blood Star to counter the surprising danger. Congratulations, Fu Wei said gently. Congratulations. Congratulations. Feng Han, Lin Xian, and many other experts congratulated him, their faces joyful and thrilled. Xia Xian Yan, Zi Yao, and Feng Rao were there too. They beamed and touched people's hearts. Their beautiful eyes had different meanings. When Shi Yan had entered Divine Land City, many warriors were shocked because of the surging blood qi and energy in his body. They had reached an incredible level. People understood that he had advanced further in his realm. Now he had entered a whole new world, incipient God realm. It was true. Grace Mainland had drifted through the space slits for a long time to arrive in Agate Star area. During that time, Shi Yan's soul altar had sublimated and his ethereal extent had upgraded to the incipient extent. He had reached first sky of incipient God realm and became a new star in this vast sea of stars. No one could overwhelm his light. I want to move Divine Land City to Grace Mainland. This time, I've brought the ancient continent here. Shi Yan turned to Blood Devil. Blood Devil was shocked. He couldn't believe that. He studied Shi Yan and then nodded slowly. He was one of a few people who knew the secret of the ancient continent. Even Fu Wei, Feng Han, and Lin Xian didn't know that. Yang Tian Emperor was the only one Shi Yan had told the ancient continent's secret. Bringing the entire ancient continent and crossing many star areas to reach here, how big was this megastructure? Blood Devil took a deep breath to calm down. Great-grandpa, Grandpa, please ask the people in the city to leave for a while. This city should be relocated to Grace Mainland, requested Shi Yan. Yang Tian Emperor and Shi Jian couldn't hide the thrill in their eyes. They studied Shi Yan with complicated looks for a while and then flew away to spread out the order. Nah, you don't need to do such laborious work. Blood Devil screamed and then spurred out a blood light. That blood light then condensed in the sky of the Divine Land City and turned it into a giant phantom. That phantom towered the entire city. It had an intimidating energy fluctuation too. The phantom then thundered, its voice reverberating. All citizens in the Divine Land should move out of the city for a while. Shi Yan wants to arrange a massive formation. Please cooperate with him. Hearing the name Shi Yan, screaming and cheering arose from each corner of Divine Land City. The residents of the city got out of their cultivating places, flooding the streets and shouting excitedly. This name was an immortal legend in Divine Land City. The people living in Divine Land City came from the clans and races from Grace Mainland, including the Chao family, the Three God sect, the Yin and Yang Wonderland, the Corpse God sect of the Endless Sea, the Radiant God cult of Divine Great Land, the members of the Human Clan, Monster Clan, and Dark Clan from the Perpetual Night Forest. Some of those clans used to have conflicts and resentment against Shi Yan. However, when Grace Mainland was running out of earth and heaven energy, and when they were the most desperate, Shi Yan appeared. He had brought them through countless star areas to reach this place. It was the grace that people had carved in their hearts. They never forgot his favor to them. In Divine Land City, the name Shi Yan was legendary. He was a legend that everybody respected. Thus, hearing that Shi Yan had returned to Divine Land City and wanted to use the city to arrange a formation, people were willing to help him. They urged their subordinates to leave the city. No one felt discontented. Shi Yan's soul consciousness raked through the city. He could sense the life energy leaving the city orderly. They were chanting his name too. Shi Yan felt warm inwardly. He suddenly recognized that his years of effort weren't wasted. Chapter 1231, Mega Work. Chapter 1231, Mega Work, _. It didn't take a long time to clear Divine Land City. Each resident of Divine Land City was a warrior with a relatively high realm in Grace Mainland because only those warriors were qualified to live in Devil Blood Star. They had cultivated ascetically for many years in Devil Blood Star, so their realms all upgraded. The warriors didn't need a long time to move out of the city. Several hours later, the entire Divine Land City was empty. Several million residents of Divine Land City were now gathering 1,000 meters away from the city. All of them were warriors from Grace Mainland with high realms. Currently, they were watching Divine Land City and discussing boisterously. What does Shuryen want to do? He wants to prepare more formations to protect Divine Land City. Outside the city, Chao Qiudao was focused, his face suspicious. Maybe that kid is now a towering giant. He surprised people a lot. Fan Xiangyun of the Yin-Yang Wonderland wore a sad face. She stooped and shook her head. She then looked at the woman standing next to her. It was Chao Jilan. Chao Jilan was so upset, her heart twisted with regret and her face sorrowful. She had never thought that Shuryen, the one she had chased after in the chasm battlefield, could reach his current height. She had self-proclaimed to be smart and keen, but she had kept this regret for the rest of her life. There's a sort of man that if you don't hold on to him when he was weak, you will never get that chance again when he conquers the whole world. Chao Jilan lowered her head and sighed. At another corner outside the city, the four cold women were looking at Divine Land City, their hearts filled with sorrow. Standing behind them were beautiful girls of Ice Emperor City. All of them were wearing white dresses, their bodies graceful and cold. Bing Qing Tong's eyes sparkled while she was talking gently. At least, we had a good time with him. It's the best moment of our life. We will remember it, and we know he remembers us. Even though we're small, he remembers us. He has visited us many times and brought us here. Shuang Yuzhu, Han Chui, Ling Danqing had mature makings. Listening to their big sister, the three women could only stoop and sigh. After they had moved to this place, their lives had become better. They had a lot of cultivating materials and their realms were increasing steadily. Their disciples behaved well, and the other forces in the city had treated them well. They weren't in a war, and they had a lot of materials to cultivate with thick earth and heaven energy. They were living the lives they had always wanted. However, sometimes when they didn't cultivate, they couldn't help but remember the old times. When they were in Ice Emperor City, a young man had come like a sharp sword that thrust into their hearts. He had brought them to fight others, and they had experienced ups and downs. They sometimes thought that if they had a choice, they would be willing to live the same old days of fear. At least, they had him at that time. Recently, they thought about the ideal life where they could have anything they wanted. However, they knew that they lacked one thing. The one thing that never belonged to them. A man like him will never be bound to any woman. No one will have him forever. Bing Qing Tong sighed and continued sadly. We're lucky. We're old stories of his life. We're much luckier than many women. The other three contemplated for a while and then smiled gently. Memories arose in their minds. Whenever they recalled old stories, they looked even prettier. They're all gone. In the city master's building, Blood Devil retrieved his soul consciousness and confirmed. Fu Wei, Yang Tian Emperor, and Shi Jian also stayed outside the city. The other cities on this planet also focused on Divine Land City as they were so curious. They wanted to see what Shuryen would do. In the coming 10,000 years, Grace Mainland will become the most suitable area to cultivate in this universe. Not only because of the abundant earth and heaven energy, but the warriors can also touch the truth of power Upanishad. Shuryen smiled and said to Blood Devil, I will preserve an area for you. You will manage that place the way you want. How does it sound? Blood Devil laughed and nodded to him. Since he knew the magical secrets of the ancient continent and the power of the Genesis fruit, he knew how heavy Shuryen's words were. In the next 10,000 years, Grace Mainland was going to replace ancient God Continent to become the most magical place in this universe. Each square meter of Grace Mainland was going to be as expensive as gold. Many warriors of the other star areas were going to want to cultivate there. It was also the reason why Xia Zhao and Mofo had rushed to rescue Shuryen when they heard he was in trouble. Later on, Each section of Grace Mainland was going to become priceless. Blood Devil knew this, so he didn't pretend to be so polite. He nodded his head immediately. I will bring Divine Land City away, Shiryen stated while his face was stern. Blood Devil nodded one more time. He didn't talk more and just disappeared from the city after a flash. Shiryen appeared in the sky above Divine Land City. He sat cross-legged and hovered in between the clouds. The crowds of Divine Land City and Devil Blood Star were watching him from a distance. They had concentrated, some even forgetting to breathe. Everyone was so excited. They wanted to know what he would do. Suddenly, the intimidating power that shook the entire sky arose. Space cracked. Several thousand-meter-long sabers appeared in the void like sabers of angels cutting the void. The sky had many cracks where eye-catching lights shot out like thousands of meteors. The void was like a massive, torn-open bag. Countless beams of five-colored light shot out everywhere. The gusts swept through the entire place terrifyingly. The incredibly enormous space crack that covered the Divine Land City slowly pressed down. The horrible pressure, like the power of God, grumblingly descended from the sky. Many warriors felt a massive hand pressing on their soul altars that they couldn't even wiggle to resist. This kind of intimidation arose deep in their hearts. The higher realm warriors had to bear bigger pressures. Many warriors standing outside Divine Land City screamed and stepped back when they saw the earth-shaking commotion. The shining space sabers that were dozens of thousands of meters long moved around the sky and cutting it. People could see beautiful wonders through those cracks. They saw meteors colliding, shattering, and shooting out billions of pieces. Those small rock pieces could kill even incipient God Realm experts. Many experts at peak of ethereal God Realm or incipient God Realm looked at the meteors colliding inside those space cracks with grimaces. Instinctively, they stepped backward. All of a sudden, the massive sabers in the air had transformed into massive hands that pulled and tore the space crack further. Billions of outer space streamers shot out, covering the entire Divine Land City like membranes. The several thousand square mile Divine Land City was tied and lifted off the ground. In that grumbling commotion like an avalanche, Divine Land City slowly floated up and flew towards the crack that looked like a bag of air. The crowd on the ground was astounded. They looked bewilderedly shocked. To where does he want to move Divine Land City? My God, what kind of power is that? I'm afraid that incipient God Realm experts aren't this powerful. Is it true that only experts with the space power could reach such height? Many warriors were clamoring outside Divine Land City. They dropped their jaws in awe. Uncle Duo, you also cultivate space power Upanishad. What do you think about that? Fu Wei looked at Jia Duo. Feng Han, Lin Xin, and the others who were by her also looked at Jia Duo, expecting a professional comment. Jia Duo shook his head and said, basically, we're different from each other. Before he had reached ethereal God Realm, we were not at the same level. Now, I'm too far behind him. I can't see through his abilities. When we were in Shadow Ghostly Prison, Bello used to confine our space and moved us to another place. If we compare him with Bello, what do you think? Asked Fu Wei. Bello at Second Sky of Incipient God Realm had plotted us. He had prepared a different deed to move us to another area. It's not really similar to this. Jia Duo pondered for a while and explained, this time, Shiryen moves the space here without any preparation beforehand. Moreover, his technique is different from Bello's. Bello had moved our space to another spot within an area. Today, Shiryen's forcefully using the space crack to move the space containing the entire Divine Land City away. He's moving a whole world. You mean, his attainment in space power Upanishad has surpassed Bello's? Feng Han was astounded. Evidently, Jia Duo confirmed. Will it work? Lin Xin wasn't so sure. I don't know, Jia Duo shook his head, but if he dares to do that, he must be sure. I think he's going to succeed. I remember he has never failed. Divine Land City slowly moved and soared out of Devil Blood Star like a sealed space. While people were gawking, the Divine Land City entered the space bag. After one flash, it disappeared. Divine Land City disappeared into thin air. Everybody couldn't stay calm anymore. They were bewildered and were looking at Shiryen and the deep hole in the sky. They couldn't think about anything. Citizens of Divine Land City, you guys should use the space teleport formation by the blood pond to leave. It's time to go home. Shiryen suddenly shouted. Our homeland today is much more suitable for you to cultivate. It's better than Devil Bloodstar. From now on, within 10,000 years, you guys don't need to move anymore. This moving space ability was from Bellow's attainment indeed. However, Bellow's power was limited, so he couldn't perform like Shiryen did today. Thus, what Bellow couldn't do at Second Sky of Incipient God Realm, Shiryen had made it work right when he had just entered Incipient God Realm. If his realm had been high enough, he could have even brought creatures all together and teleported them to Grace Mainland instantly. It's better to cultivate there than in Devil Bloodstar. Homeland. Does it have some earth-shaking changes? Since Shiryen had come back to Grace Mainland that year, I have a feeling that I'm dreaming all the time. Crossing the star areas to visit Devil Bloodstar, living in another star area, and crossing for something else? You can't cross the same distance to come home? Am I really living in a dream for such a long time? Oh, home sweet home. We've been away from home for a long time. If he said it's different, it ends up binge different. Move. Let's go home. Let's go home. Home sweet home. Chapter 1232, Immortal. Chapter 1232, Immortal, _ There were beautiful white light halos expanded by the blood pond. Every time the white light flashed, it meant that a group of people had left Devil Bloodstar. Divine Land City citizens had used the formation to continuously leave under Shiryen's control. Many people who had participated in his life had finally met him after so many years. He stood by the blood pond. Blood Devil, Fu Wei, Feng Han, Lin Xian, and leaders of the other forces also stood quietly by the formation, their countenances complex. The warriors of the Yang family and the Shi family stood at the end of the line. They didn't take the chance to leave first. Yang Tian Emperor was talking with Blood Devil. They were discussing something interesting. Shortly after, most of the Divine Land City's residents had left. Only the members of the Yang family and the Shi family remained. Yang Tian Emperor looked at Shiryen. Shiryen chuckled and then explained, "You guys shouldn't go back to Divine Land City. We're going to Immortal Island. Later on, this sea will have more spiritual chi than Divine Great Land." Yang Tian Emperor and Shi Jian looked moved and joyful. "How about me? Which good land have you preserved for me?" Blood Devil laughed. "Also the Endless Sea," Shiryen squinted. "Our family will go to the Endless Sea because it will be the most precious land in the continent later." Since he had fused with the ancient continent, he knew that Heavenly Monster Mountain Range in the Endless Sea was the holy land of Heavenly Monster Tribe. That sacred land was really magical as Heavenly Monster experts had changed the world structure there. They had installed many new things. Earlier, Shiryen had found that the richness level of Earth and Heaven energy on many islands in the Endless Sea had gradually surpassed the average level in Grace Mainland. Definitely, they would become the most lively and live in the most wealthy areas in the continent. Shiryen was greedy, so he had to keep the best things for his family. Thus, the Yang family and the Shi family who walked the last are going to continue to be the overlord of the Endless Sea. Fu Wei, Feng Han, and Lin Xian were listening, their faces suspicious. "Shiryen, isn't Devil Bloodstar good enough? Why must you leave?" Wu Lan had talked for all of them. "If the Devil Bloodstar doesn't have enough energy, why did you have to cross thousands of miles to get here?" The others also looked at him. Leona, Fei Lan, Ka Tua, Fu Wei, and Zi Yao were also curious. The people standing here at this moment had noble statuses or a close relationship with Shiryen. Thus, they were qualified to know the secret. Shiryen contemplated for a while. He understood that the ancient continent wasn't a secret in the other star areas. They were going to know it eventually. He didn't need to conceal anymore. "You guys go with me to see with your own eyes." People then had their eyes brighten and they all nodded. Ka Tua, go to the Giant Clan and ask Xingu and Na Xian to come to meet me here. The Giant Clan had helped us a lot that year. We shouldn't mistreat them. Precursor Fei Lan, please call Karthu and the others from Raging Flame Star area. Yeah, just the people who are close to us. For example, the pirates from the land of God punishment should be brought here. We don't need to care about the ones from the Underworld League. Shiryen pondered and then advised the other. Ka Tua and Fei Lan went away immediately. Feng Rao's charming face was happy. She was touched. She was a smart woman, so she could guess that the ones who were invited here should have a big chance from Shiryen. The pirates of the land of God Punishment were under her father's control. As they were gathering in Devil Bloodstar and Shiryen had asked to bring them here, of course, he had given her face. When Ziyao heard Shiryen mention Karthu, she smiled, her bright eyes rippling light as she threw him a look. Shortly after, Na Xian and Zhengu of the giant clan came like two mountains. Na Xian had almost reached incipient god realm, and Zhengu had entered second sky of ethereal god realm. Now, their bodies were sparkling with a crystal light like jade with surging, which immediately increased immense blood chi. Hey Shiryen, what did you call us for? Haha, our giant clan is content to live in Devil Bloodstar. We don't want to move, guffawed Na Xian. The giant clan was contented to their current life. Devil Bloodstar was rich of earth and heaven energy, and it was the base of Demon Clan. It was also one of the strongest areas in Aged Star Area. Nobody dared to provoke the strongest clan in Agate Star Area. The giant clan had a private area in Devil Bloodstar. Currently, their soldiers' realms sharply increased. Na Xian and Zhengu really enjoyed their current lives. Hearing Ka Tua talking unclearly that Shiryen wanted to move the giant clan, they weren't so willing. You can decide later. Shiryen just smiled and gave no explanation beforehand. After a while, Feng Ku, Karthu, and the warriors of Raging Flame Star area arrived. Uncle, Ziyao smiled and called him gently. Karthu bent his body elegantly. Your Highness, you look much better than before. Getting out of Raging Flame Star area was a precise decision. It's our fate that we can come to Agate Star area. He turned to Shiryen and smiled. You've changed terrifically. Every time I see you, I have to jolt back. Feng Ku and the captains of the pirates in the land of God Punishment looked wary when they came here. Standing in front of Blood Devil, Fu Wei, and Feng Han, the famous warriors of Agate Star area, they bent their bodies slightly as they were tense. Feng Rao then walked to them and said, Father, don't worry. It's a good thing that you're invited here. We're blessed. Feng Ku relaxed, nodded, and smiled, looking at Shiryen. Of course, he knew the relationship between his daughter and Shiryen. He also knew that Shiryen had an ambiguous relationship with many women. Sometimes he didn't feel that it was fair for his daughter. However, most of the time, he was happy because his daughter's choice was made precisely. Because of his daughter's accurate presumption, the vulnerable pirates in the land of God Punishment could move to a high-level star area and live in Devil Bloodstar. Compared to Agate Star Area's warriors, Raging Flame Star Area's warriors were weaker. When they came here, they felt like they were farmers visiting a big metropolis for the first time. They understood that what they got today was because of Shiryen's concern to Feng Ku's daughter. Okay, we're all here. Let's go. Shiryen raked through the group and then walked to the formation. People immediately followed him. The dazzling halos flashed when they disappeared. Then, they reappeared on the Immortal Island in the Endless Sea. This place had a formation that Shiryen had created a long time ago. Before he came to Devil Bloodstar, he had fixed it and turned it into a marvelous formation that could cross the border between star areas easily. They were now standing on the formation on the Immortal Island. Oh! Yang Tian Emperor arched his brows. He cried when he was touched. The members of the Yang family and the Shi family were baffled. That year, when the Dark Clan and the Demon Clan had invaded the Endless Sea, creatures living on islands of the Endless Sea had to live in misery. Mountains had collapsed and the lakes had dried up. When they left the continent that year, everything was barren and dreary. At that time, Grace Mainland hadn't reached the end of its energy cycle, but the earth and heaven energy had already diluted. Today, the Immortal Island had many strange plants, green mountains, and crystal-clear lakes. They could even see fat shrimps and fish with spirit chi. The valleys were now filled with flowers. They had also found many strange and rare forests that grew only in some areas of Agate Star area. The white wisps of milky mist wound around the islands. Many different kinds of birds were singing, their voices echoing around the mountains. The auspicious clouds hovered in the sky with the hazy mist decorating the island and making it a wonderland somewhere. Blood Devil, Fu Wei, and Feng Han were dumbstruck. Right after that, they released their soul consciousnesses to check around. Shortly after, Feng Han said, "The spirit chi in this area is really abundant and thick. It has many rare grass and plants. Oh, I can sense a divine crystal mine near here. Why did you guys leave this place that year?" He couldn't understand it. No, it's not true. Na Xian had been to the Endless before. He frowned and then said, "Completely different. This is completely different from the previous time I came here. It's a whole new world. If the earth and heaven energy in that place had been 1/3 of what we have now, how could we have had to leave?" sighed Yang Tian Emperor. After people listened to Na Xian and Yang Tian Emperor, they looked at Shi Yan since they knew that there was some secret behind the scene. As the others were gazing at him, Shi Yan lowered his voice. "Right now, the earth and heaven energy of this area isn't as strong as the energy in Devil Blood Star. But I'm sure that within 100 years, it will surpass Devil Blood Star. 1,000 years later, this place will have the thickest earth and heaven energy in the entire universe. It will be an auspicious time for warriors to train their bodies and practice their abilities. Later on, this continent was going to become the wonderland of the cosmos." Listening to him, people changed their visages. All looked shocked. It's true. In the next 10,000 years, this continent will become the cosmic center. A voice came from deep in the sky. However, a man instantly appeared on the Immortal Island and stood in front of the others. Blood Devil at Third Sky of Incipient God Realm was baffled when he saw the man. He shouted in awe, "You! What's your realm? Allow me to introduce myself. I was born on this continent in the immemorial epic. I'm a member of Heavenly Monster Tribe." Azure Dragon smiled and looked at Shi Yan. "Bloodthirsty Force's successor, we finally met. On behalf of all members of the Heavenly Monster Tribe, I thank you sincerely." "Who are you, sir?" Shi Yan had a turbulent vibe in his heart. In front of this man, he felt so small as if he had to lift his face to look at a high sky. After breaking through to Incipient God Realm, Shi Yan could feel calm even when he faced Blood Devil. However, after this man had shown himself here, he felt deadly dangerous. It was like having the tip of a sharp spear placed on his Adam's apple. He felt so tense in every second. He had never gotten this feeling before. "I'm the current chief of Heavenly Monster Tribe." "I'm Azure Dragon," smiled the man. Shi Yan discolored in fright. He was baffled for a while before he could pull himself together. He took a deep breath and then bowed to the man. "Sir, you old man. I didn't know that you were alive until now. I truly am meeting about an archaic monster." Azure Dragon guffawed. "I'm sure you will reach Immortal Realm. Once you enter that realm, you can live as long as I can." Listening to him, Fu Wei, Feng Han, Na Xian, Leona, Lin Xian, and the others were astounded. The Immortal Realm was a legendary realm. Although Agate's star area was a high-level star area, they never had a warrior in this realm for the past dozens of thousands of years. This sort of warrior had only existed in rumors and myth. It was an existence that nobody had ever met. Today, they finally saw one. Immortal. Chapter 1233, Unyielding. Chapter 1233, Unyielding, _ Holy Ancestor Azure Dragon of Heavenly Monster Tribe showing himself here had frightened the warriors on the Immortal Island. They finally had the chance to see the legendary Immortal Realm expert. However, Azure Dragon wasn't interested in the others. His pupils shrank as he said, "We are going to talk in private." He looked at Shi Yan. Shi Yan nodded, "Okay." Azure Dragon chuckled and then disappeared. At the same time, a massive energy tornado twirled and covered Shi Yan tightly. He couldn't even wiggle and he felt so dizzy. When he resumed his normal condition, he found himself standing on the Heavenly Monster Mountain Range in the vault of Sky Sea area. Those mountains here were arranged like fingers of a hand. The earth and heaven energy in this mountain range was fresh and abundant. Taking in the milky white air, Shi Yan felt refreshed and happy. Azure Dragon smiled and looked at the Heavenly Monster Mountain Range happily. When we left this place, the earth and heaven energy wasn't suitable for our cultivation anymore. After many years, I finally got the chance to return to our home. Shuryen didn't know what he wanted to say, so he just kept silent and listened to him. Thank you for your labor. Our heavenly monster tribe has to thank you a lot. Azure Dragon smiled until his eyes squinted. No need, Shuryen wore a faint face. After fusing with the Genesis fruit, I got some benefits too. I didn't take the worst of it. Haha, of course, you won't bear a loss. The God Clan has only made your bloodthirsty force bear the loss once. Azure Dragon contemplated for a while and then said, in the next 10,000 years, Grace Mainland will be the best place for cultivating in the entire universe. Every square inch here will be very pricey. Anyway, the Grace Mainland is our ancestral star. Our heavenly monster tribe must move back here. Shuryen nodded. He knew that heavenly monster tribe would absolutely return because this planet was the most suitable place for their members to cultivate. They sure knew how to make a good decision. This continent needs to be divided one more time. Azure Dragon didn't want to go around the bush. The Heavenly Monster Mountain Range and the adjacent areas should belong to our Heavenly Monster tribe, including the surrounding sea. I hope you will move all irrelevant warriors out of this area and as far as possible. Oh, right. What do you call this sea area? The Endless Sea. Yeah, the Endless Sea. Our Heavenly Monster tribe wants the Endless Sea. In the next 10,000 years, we will cultivate in the Endless Sea. This place will belong to us. Azure Dragon simply stated his wish. Shuryen's eyes became cold. He had fused with the Origin, so he knew that Endless Sea was the place that was going to have the thickest earth and heaven energy in the future. At the same time, the Heavenly Monster Mountain Range had a magical field of force that wasn't created by Heavenly Monster Tribe. It was naturally formed. If they cultivated near that field, their soul consciousness could somehow reach the fountainhead of power Upanishad. Although it wasn't that their souls could enter that place, it was still going to help them a lot to comprehend their powers deeper if they could cultivate in this area. It was similar to Extreme Purgatory Field in Raging Flame Star area where warriors could understand their powers better and faster. Shuryen could even feel that this field of force was expanding towards the Endless Sea little by little. It rippled like waves in the sea. In 100 years, the entire Endless Sea was going to stay within this magical field of force. Also, that field and the dark magnetic noxious mist were connected. Currently, the dark magnetic noxious mist was changing magically. Many spirit herbs and plants were growing there together with rare and precious crystals, which Shuryen had seen only on Desolate. The misty area to the east of the Endless Sea used to be an area where experts of Heavenly Monster Tribe cultivated ascetically. That area belongs to the Endless Sea, so it should belong to our Heavenly Monster Tribe too, said Azure Dragon sternly. Shuryen felt more irritated. As far as he knew, the Endless Sea and the dark magnetic noxious mist were the most special places on this continent. The Endless Sea was going to be filled with thick energy, so the warriors could comprehend their powers better there. The dark magnetic noxious field was going to create a lot of treasures. These two areas were likely going to become the most precious lands in this continent. It was the reason why he wanted to bring the Yang family and the Shur family to the Endless Sea, but not Divine Great Land. As soon as the Holy Monster of Heavenly Monster Tribe requested the said two lands, the most precious lands in the future, Shuryen obviously didn't agree. However, he didn't say it curtly. Instead, he said with a regretful face, "It's no use even when you talk to me." Azure Dragon frowned. Why is it no use? I can't decide that, Shuryen shrugged and said reluctantly. The Endless is occupied. The Yang family owns it. It always belongs to the Yang family. Azure Dragon snorted. You fused with the Origin. Your words can determine the fate of this continent. Some chiefs of our bloodthirsty force have some agreement with the Yang family. The successors of the bloodthirsty force will be trained in the Endless Sea. Well, your Heavenly Monster Tribe wants to swallow the Endless Sea and even the dark magnetic noxious mist. I don't think those chiefs would agree with you. If you want to negotiate, you should find them. Shuryen spoke nonchalantly. This Heavenly Monster Tribe's holy ancestor apparent wanted to force him. Before the chiefs of the bloodthirsty force arrived, he wanted to use his immortal cultivation base to force Shuryen. As Shuryen was the heir of the Bloodthirsty Force's master, he was also the spokesman of the current Bloodthirsty Force, and he had the origin. If he agreed with Azure Dragon under his pressure, it would be a big headache to Xian He and Frederick later. You're the new generation of Bloodthirsty. It's all right if you just nod. Azure Dragon spoke again. Billions of mysterious symbols were moving in his eyes. They twinkled like diamonds and moved inside his pupils. An unclear, threatening power was generated and getting stronger. Shuryen's face changed. He snorted and then said, "Precursor, you want to force me with your power? Before the experts of our Bloodthirsty Force arrive, you want to force me into it. I hoped that you would agree. This endless sea and that thick mist used to belong to our heavenly monster tribe. We just need 2 pieces of land. I don't think it's too much compared to the entire continent." Azure Dragon was persistent. The solemn, tyrannical monster chi on his body was like billions of mountains pressing down on Shuryen's head. Shuryen felt that it hard to breathe. He knew that Azure Dragon hadn't used all of his force. It was just a bit of power, and Shuryen knew that it was much more intimidating than facing 10 of Fick at the same time. He was dispirited that he couldn't counter the Azure Dragon. Crack! 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 The bones in his body made cracking noises as he turned into his immortal demon body, the fighting form of his race. Still, it was strenuous to resist the pressure. His crimson eyes were cold as he said, "If your heavenly monster tribe wants to claim the endless sea and the dark magnetic noxious mist, you have to kill me first." Holy Beast Azure Dragon studied him. A strange light flared up from his eyes. The old beast pondered for a while and then snorted. The pressure immediately fell from the sky. Under his power, even the sky seemed to shatter soon. It felt 10 times as heavy as the sky. Shuryen quivered. His veins and bones were about to be smashed. He gritted his teeth to keep his mind sound and burned the immortal demon blood. He smiled crazily all of a sudden. "My co-soul has fused with the origin of this continent. If I die, your heavenly monster tribe's hope and future will shatter. Do you still want to touch me?" He suddenly understood this. Azure Dragon would never dare to touch him. Quite the contrary, if Shuryen was in danger, Azure Dragon had to use his best means to protect him to prevent his soul altar from disappearing. Shuryen was the basic assurance for the future of a strong heavenly monster tribe. As Shuryen understood it clearly, he wasn't afraid anymore. He laughed contentedly. "Who do you think you can scare? Okay, I now won't do anything to defend myself. Let's see if you dare to kill me." Then, he retrieved his energy and stopped burning the immortal demon blood. When Azure Dragon saw him do that, his face changed dramatically. He immediately retrieved all of his threats, his face grimaced. "You aren't afraid of death." I very am. But I'm not afraid of you because you will never dare to touch me." Shuryen's eyes twinkled. Looking at the heavenly monster mountain range, he mocked. "Well, it's not easy to take all the good things. Your heavenly monster tribe has been hiding for a long time. The God clan is still powerful. Do you think you can control this whole world? Ridiculous." Azure Dragon had a headache now. Shuryen was right. Even if Azure Dragon had more guts, he couldn't dare to kill Shuryen. Shuryen represented the future of Heavenly Monster Tribe's ancestral star. If he died, Grace Mainland would return to its bleak condition without the origin. It was the chance that Heavenly Monster Tribe had been waiting for. 10,000 years would be destroyed with him too. Being the current chief of the Heavenly Monster Tribe, how dare he do that? Okay, fine. Tell me what we should do. Azure Dragon didn't know whether he should cry or smile. He had to step back for the overall benefit. We don't have many members in our tribe anymore. We are in a hurry to get to the Endless Sea or the dark magnetic noxious mist to recover our conditions. What do you think? Well, after the God Clan is defeated, we will talk about this. As Shuryen had grabbed Azure Dragon's weakness, he felt relaxed. For the time being, the members of Heavenly Monster Tribe can go to the sea area around the Heavenly Monster Mountain Range. And for future resettlement, we will discuss later. Azure Dragon agreed reluctantly. I'm going to take my tribe here. He didn't want to linger. Azure Dragon opened his mouth to spurt out a big lightning ball to cover Shuryen and directly threw him back to the Immortal Island. When he returned from Heavenly Monster Mountain Range to the Immortal Island, Blood Devil and the others were still there. Now, they were all astounded upon seeing him come back. "You're back," Shangchen sounded worried. "Oh, when did you arrive?" Shuryen was surprised. When he came back to Devil Blood Star, he knew that Shangchen wasn't there. He didn't think that Shangchen would come here using the space teleport formation. "You have 1 day to arrange things here. After that, we must go quickly," hissed Shangchen. Shuryen was surprised. "What makes you so hurried?" To help you, Xia Zhao, Mo, Wu Feng, and Jiao Shan had gone to Agate Star Area. The God Clan is forcefully taking revenge at their star areas. "The situation got really serious," said Shangchen. Shuryen shivered inwardly. "Only I can help them solve this danger." Currently, the major star areas have formed a union. They are discussing how to deal with the God Clan. You're the representative of the Bloodthirsty force. You have to join the meeting and voice your opinion. "It's Frederick who asked you to come here again?" Shuryen shot him a look. Shangchen nodded embarrassedly. "He's confined. It's hard to do anything else. He asked me to represent him and tell you the information." "How generous you guys are when you give me 1 day to arrange my stuff," Shuryen sneered. "We're in a rushed situation," Shangchen explained with a forced smile. "Okay, I got it. 1 day it is. I also want to see how the grand meeting of the unity of the major star areas is. It's a good chance to widen my knowledge, though." Chapter 1234, Fulfill the Promise. Chapter 1234, Fulfill the Promise, _ Immortal Island. The Yang family's mansion still stood firm. It just looked a little shabby. Yang Tian Emperor stood inside the mansion that was covered in spider webs and dust, silent for a long time. Emotions swarmed him. He sighed, "It has been too many years." The members of the Yang family and the Shi family also were very emotional. They didn't think that after moving around the cosmos, they would have to return to their starting point. Life was strange, indeed. Xia Xinyan was standing in this crowd. Her bright eyes were dispirited. She looked lonely as she sighed. The Xia family and the Yang family had been friends for many generations. Because of the incident in Divine Great Land, they had become strangers. Xia Qinghe went in the wrong direction as they didn't want to stay on the same side as the Yang family. Eventually, the Xia family declined. Shuryen's people were the ones who stood and laughed at the end of the battle in the perpetual night forest. However, he didn't massacre the Xia family that year. 200 years had passed quietly. Many members of the Xia family couldn't break through to the next realm, so they had to slowly die naturally. Xia Xinyan didn't know where the other members were living. She felt so bitter. Seeing the Yang family and the Shi family walk to new heights compared to the Xia family, she felt so sour that she couldn't even utter a word. Right at this moment, someone held her hand. She turned around to look at Shuryen. "There are still many members of the Xia family on this continent," he smiled at her. "Where?" Xia Xinyan's beautiful eyes brightened. "I'll take you there." A light passage appeared. Shuryen took Xia Xinyan through it. They flashed and disappeared from the Immortal Island. The Reincarnation Island in Jia Luosi area was the place where the Xia family was staying. This small island had many bushes of wild grass. Standing at the southeast corner were big halls and buildings made of flaming red stone. Dozens of young warriors of the Xia family were practicing on the training yard. Xia Yi was one of them. He was at Disaster Realm and he was practicing martial arts together with some other young members of the Xia family. A crook-backed old man sat at the corner of the training yard and nodded his head as he watched Xia Yi. Xia Yi stopped practicing his martial arts and walked to the old man. "Precursor Zhou, I heard that you've lived for more than 200 years. What happened to the Xia family in Divine Great Land 200 years ago?" Zhou Yu darkened his face and snorted. "Why are you asking about such nonsense? The Reincarnation Island is the root of the Xia family. It has always been like that. The Xia family has never come to Divine Great Land. Why does our great-grandfather sigh and say every time that if we hadn't chosen the wrong side, we would have left a long time ago?" Xia Yi lowered his voice and murmured, "I heard that the real hero had left many years ago from here to outer space." Rumors said that if we hadn't chosen the wrong way, our Xia family would have led them to enter the Sea of Stars. Is it true? Zhou Yu was irritated. He shouted at the young man, "Don't talk such nonsense." He lifted his head to look at the sky and sighed inwardly. It has been many years, our young lady. I wonder if she still survives. Our head doesn't have much time. I hope he can meet her one last time. He stood up and walked by himself to the mountain behind the Xia family. Inside a cave mansion behind the mountain, Xia Shenchuan was sitting cross-legged to document the martial techniques that he had learned. His vitality had weakened gradually, so he had to write down all the techniques he had learned throughout his life with the hope of leaving some legacy to the Xia family. His father, Xia Qingho, had gone with the Pure Land that year. In the end, the Pure Land was defeated and ran away. His father took them back to the Endless Sea. Since that day, Xia Qingho was always dismal. And later on, his strange illness had occupied him one more time. As the earth and heaven energy in this area was reduced, Xia Qingho couldn't advance his realm further. Gradually, he died from exhaustion. Before he died, his sound mind came back to him for a moment, and he had reminded his children about his mistake. Headmaster Zhou Yu came forward. Xia Shenchuan lifted his head and smiled. Why don't you supervise the kids in the training yard? Headmaster, you should continue to insist on it. As soon as you can reach true God realm, your longevity will increase. You can live more. Maybe we'll see our young lady come home. Xia Shenchuan shook his head with a forced smile. Don't advise me furthermore. I'm sure I can't break through anymore. It's better to save my remaining time to document more martial arts for the kids. Headmaster, it's different now. Don't you feel like the spirit chi in the Endless Sea is much thicker than in the past? You still have time. If you're still wasting your time and effort in writing down those martial techniques, you will not have any chance. Zhou Yu said, if little Yan knew you were like this, she would have felt very disappointed. Xia Shenchuan quivered, his hand trembling as he was writing. He said miserably, more than 200 years. When little Yan left through the space crack inside Fire and Ice secret domain that year, I knew she couldn't survive. Dangers are everywhere in outer space. If she's still alive, she would have come back soon. Crack! The stone at the cave entrance was broken. Xia Shenchuan and Zhou Yu unconsciously turned around to look. They were shocked immediately, their old eyes watery. They were so bewildered as they pointed at the ones who had just arrived, but they couldn't make a sound. Xia Xinyan stood by the cave entrance, tears lingering in her beautiful eyes. She sobbed, "Grandfather. Little Yan. It's little Yan. Am I dizzy?" Xia Shenchuan felt like he had a dying flash of lucidity. He glowed in health and dashed out of the cave. "It's me. It's really me," Xia Xinyan cried and tried to talk. It had been so long time. She wanted to go home, but she didn't have a chance. The space passages connecting Agate Star Area to other star areas were sealed or full of dangers. She wasn't strong enough to go home, so she could only embrace and hide her nostalgia in her heart. Today, her homeland had come to Agate Star Area directly. Since they were in the same star area, she had finally had a chance to visit her homeland. It had been 200 years. Xia Xinyan couldn't hold herself when she knew that her family members were still alive. Shiryan stood at a corner behind the mountain and watched the cave mansion. He didn't step in. Before he had reached Incipient God Realm, he had visited Sky Meteor City, the Endless Sea, and Divine Great Land once. From that trip, he knew that the Xia family was staying in the Reincarnation Island, but he didn't visit them. It would have been on the same day. That year, it was Xia Qingho who had betrayed them to follow the Pure Land. Although this person had died a long time ago, Shiryan still had a knot with the Xia family. Thus, even though he had brought Xia Xinyan back here to let her reunite with her family, he didn't want to meet them. After a long time, Xia Shenchuan and Zhou Yu appeared at the cave entrance and looked at him from a distance. Xia Shenchuan bowed to him and said loudly, "On behalf of the Xia family, I want to deliver our apology to the Yang family." Zhou Yu eyed Shiryan. He was filled with astonishment. From Xia Xinyan, he knew Shiryan's realm and status now. Compared to the man he knew in the past, The young man standing in front of him was a representative of miracles. Many members of the Xia family heard Xia Shenchuan's voice. They were surprised and they gathered from different areas. Xia Yi was one of them. He dashed and saw a young man standing in the valley. That man looked around his age, 20-something. He was wearing black clothes, his long hair draped over his shoulder as he showcased his majestic figure and harsh bearings. The Yang family? Is that the family of the prodigy that people have talked about? He's the one who had delivered many strong clans in our continent to outer space. He's the immortal legend of our continent. Xia Yi screamed in fear. Shiryan, my grandfather said sorry. Do you still hold the grudge? Xia Xianyan thinned her lips, her eyes bright. Shiryan? I think I heard this name before. The Yang family and Shiryan. Is he that man of the legend? Is that really him? The one who has escaped to outer space? The members of the Xia family were boisterous. They looked at Shiryan as if he was their idol. The name Shiryan was a legend in this era. He was an idol and a hero in many people's minds. In every corner of the continent, warriors from every clan knew this name. This man had brought their precursors and seniors out of this land and entered the cosmos. At that time, they weren't strong enough, so they weren't qualified to come with the others. However, their precursors had told them that when they were strong enough, they could get the right to enter outer space. Their precursors asked them to memorize this name and told them all of these events were possible because of an extraordinary expert who had brought hope to this exhausted continent. Xia Yi and all of the members of the Xia family gazed at the man without even blinking. Shiryan's brows furrowed and then stretched. With you here, how could I hold such a grudge? Xia Xianyan felt so sweet. Then how about this reincarnation island? She hesitated. Xia Shenchuan and Zhou Yu knew the secret, so they clenched their fists anxiously. From Xia Xianyan, they knew many marvelous secrets of the continent. They knew the Endless Sea would be the most attractive place in the entire universe. It would attract many warriors from outer space to come and cultivate. Each square meter here would be worth a whole divine crystal load. If Shiryan nodded, it would be the huge fortune to the Xia family, which could affect the Xia family for the next 10,000 years. All right, Shiryan sighed, you guys can stay and cultivate in this island. Xia Shenchuan and Zhou Yu were thrilled. They honestly bowed to him. I'm leaving. Shiryan nodded to Xia Xianyan as he was about to leave. You have to leave tomorrow, so stay with me today. Xia Xianyan's bright eyes moved as she walked to him and hooked his arm. They flashed and disappeared. In the next moment, Shiryan and Xia Xianyan reappeared in a forest on the beach of the Reincarnation Island. As soon as they landed, she kissed Shiryan passionately. Her snow-white arms wrapped around his neck, her sexy body leaning against his. Her bright eyes were dreamy as her soft body arched toward him. She aroused his lusty desire. Biting her succulent red lips, she breathed out the orchid fragrance. You're stronger than me today. It's time to fulfill my promise that year. Her graceful body spun one round, releasing herself from her clothes. Her perfect body like the jade was exposed. Shiryan's eyes were scorching. Seeing the woman jumped onto his lap, he thundered huskily and hugged her, enjoying their time passionately. Chapter 1235, The Tsunami Chamber of Commerce. Chapter 1235, The Tsunami Chamber of Commerce, _ Ancient God Continent. A limestone cave ran directly into the earth where it was filled with heat waves. It had so many lava ponds filled with scorching red liquid. The energy fluctuations in this area were dense and powerful. This limestone cave was so spacious. It was like a small world with millions of lava ponds. Vaguely, they formed a magical formation. A figure was soaking in a scorching pond, his face handsome and resolute even though he was closing his eyes. He opened his eyes and shot dark red lights. The lights had triggered the power of the restriction in the cave. Instantaneously, all the lava ponds in the cave began to boil. Then the lava in the pond gathered and created flaming ribbons. They flew out of the lava ponds, consecutively winding around his naked body. The flaming scarlet ribbons had refined his spirit and body. It extracted the contamination in his blood to increase his power. The lava pond quickly dried up. Within dozens of seconds, millions of lava ponds were exhausted. However, after 1 hour, new lava came and filled the ponds from the earth core. Once the lava ponds were refilled, the young man continued to use his secret technique to gather the flaming liquid and make them ribbons to quench his body and soul to perfect himself. A shadow appeared like a ghost or a wisp of a soul. He stood inside the limestone cave and looked at the young man in the biggest pond. After a long time, he snorted and called, "Haig." The young man lifted his head, red flames flashing in his eyes. He resumed his calmness. His naked body floated up and he addressed the other respectfully, "Elder." Fengju looked at him coldly. "Did you reflect on your mistakes on the ancient continent?" Haig nodded. "I know I was wrong." "What is your mistake?" Fengju furrowed his brows. "I had underestimated my opponent's competence," Haig pondered and said. Fengju studied him, his eyes evil and bizarre. After a while, he said coldly, "You've reached incipient god realm and refined your body here. Your power Upanishad has advanced too. Anyway, that Shuryen is standing in your way. You must kill him yourself. The others can't help you. Only defeating him and breaking his soul altar can help you advance further on your path of cultivating power Upanishad." 10 years ago, Haig had 1 foot into incipient god realm. His realm, power, and body had been qualified to enter the new realm. However, to be eligible to enter Desolate for the Genesis fruit, he had forcefully pressed down his realm. He had lingered at peak of ethereal god realm during the whole trip. When he came back from Desolate, he didn't restrain his power anymore. Shortly after, he had entered incipient god realm. He had used a secret technique to refine his soul and body. His soul altar was refined 1 more time. His realm and power Upanishad all upgraded. However, the failure on the ancient continent had created a Mara in his heart. It affected his moods and it cracked in his arrogant confidence. Fengju knew that this crack would affect his realm in the future and make his fast progress stagnate. Haig had fused with the origin of ancient god continent. He was going to become an assurance for the prosperity of the god clan in the future. Fengju wasn't going to allow Haig to fail again. He knew where Haig's illness was rooted. "Go to Tsunami Star. The one you want to kill is there. As soon as you destroy him, you can secure your state of mind. I will never fail you again," Haig answered. With a harsh gleam crossing his eyes, he mumbled to himself, "Shuryen, I hope you're well prepared." The god-blessed mainland. Audrey had woken up for a long time, but she still used the evil souls to nurture her host's soul. The incipient extent she had created was a murky gray world. It had cold energy fluctuations that could terrify people. This kind of energy ran directly into people's souls as if it could freeze the other soul altar. After a long time, she opened her beautiful eyes and smiled. "Mother, I've broken through to incipient god realm." Adele smiled lovingly at her. "With your innate talents, I'm not surprised that you can reach incipient god realm early. How do you feel?" Audrey closed her eyes to sense her body. She answered happily, "Excellent." "Oh, right. Did somebody help me by giving me many souls while I was cultivating? When I was condensing the incipient extent, I could feel my soul altar change, so I used our secret technique to refine it once." "Yeah, something changed while you were cultivating." Adele's eyes brightened. "As you've done before, you should go to Tsunami Star and buy some divine liquids to improve your soul altar." Audrey stood up and nodded. She was about to leave immediately. She had visited Tsunami Star many times. She knew how to get there. It had started when she had reached King God Realm. After she entered the new realm, she went to Tsunami Star to find marvelous liquids to strengthen her soul altar. The soul altar training method of the Imperial Dark Tribe was unique. Every time their soul altars evolved, they needed some special liquids to secure it. "Wait a minute," Adele called to her and frowned. "I heard that the forces of the star areas where the God Clan has invaded were having a secret summit meeting in the Tsunami Star. Many people with different purposes will go there too. You should be careful." "I will. I will assign Gillette to go with you." "Oh, do I need to go with Gillette this time?" "Sure you do." "Okay." Tsunami Star. It was a massive level 7 life star. This life star was the life star that ranked only behind the ancient continent in the level of thick earth and heaven energy. It stayed in the center of Tsunami star area and was surrounded by dozens of life stars like stars surrounding the bright moon. There was a sea territory near Tsunami star where millions of battleships and spaceships from different star areas embarked and disembarked. Every day, billions of warriors from many races came here. The sea territory of Tsunami star was acknowledged as the liveliest wonderland of this universe. It was much wealthier and more bustling than any sea territory of the God Clan. All of this was because of a force at Tsunami star area, the Tsunami Chamber of Commerce. The Tsunami Chamber of Commerce was similar to Potion and Tool Pavilion. They were specialized in collecting and trading materials. The Tsunami Chamber of Commerce also bought and sold crystals, divine weapons, power Upanishad source of inheritance, beast bones and souls, and even life stars. The structure of this Chamber of Commerce was much bigger than Potion and Tool Pavilion. Compared to Tsunami Chamber of Commerce, Potion and Tool Pavilion was like a small ant standing by an elephant. They weren't at the same level. The Tsunami Chamber of Commerce had business affairs around star areas in this cosmos. Even if it was a small corner of the universe, the warriors could still find their stores. If the clan or force wasn't closed and conservative, it knew about the Tsunami Chamber of Commerce's existence and create a close and complex connection with this Chamber of Commerce. If Potion and Tool Pavilion's business covered the entire Agate star area, Tsunami Chamber of Commerce's affairs had covered the entire universe. Tsunami Chamber of Commerce and the ruling echelons of big star areas had a harmonious relationship. The forces of Hollow Fearsome star area, Prosaic star area, Earth Ice star area, Sirius star area, Black River star area, and other star areas had trading affairs with this Chamber of Commerce. Even the families of the God Clan had to have a close connection with this organization. This Chamber of Commerce didn't join any war in the Sea of Stars. Just like a genuine businessman, it only collected and sold materials in the star areas. At the same time, no one wanted to offend this Chamber of Commerce. Even the brutal God Clan didn't dare to attack its stores. Many people had guessed that Tsunami Chamber of Commerce had a close-knit relationship with the God Clan. They thought that perhaps the mysterious president of Tsunami Chamber of Commerce was one of the elders of the God Clan's Elder Committee. There were many rumors about the mysterious president of Tsunami Chamber of Commerce. Some said that he was from Immortal Demon Clan, while others rumored that he was from Heavenly Monster Tribe. This man was so mysterious. He had secluded to cultivate all the time. Many experts of the influent forces wanted to meet him once, but they were all denied. Not many people had the chance to know his real name too. They heard that this Chamber of Commerce had existed for dozens of thousands of years ago. It had witnessed the four great creatures take turns to be the overlord and the rise of the Bloodthirsty force. The president of this Tsunami Chamber of Commerce was always mysterious in each generation. However, they were all geniuses that could bring the Chamber of Commerce to their glory today. Besides the sea territory for the battleships to travel, there were many space teleport formations around the planet. Although the space teleport formations could teleport only creatures and not giant battleships, the four areas of the space teleport formations were hectic like running water. Every day, experts from many star areas could come or leave through the formations. The teleport formations were much more convenient than the sea territory because they could go directly to the destination without traveling further as when using the sea territory. The four areas of the teleport formation on Tsunami Chamber of Commerce were called Heaven, Earth, Black, and Yellow. Each area had dozens of differently sized formations. Some could teleport only 1 or 2 passengers, while the massive formations could transport 1,000 or 1,000,000 passengers at a time. Of course, anyone who wanted to use the formation in the Heaven, Earth, Black, and Yellow areas had to pay with divine crystals. Tsunami Chamber of Commerce collected fees, and the fees varied based on the capacity of the formation and the distance. Today, a small, normal-looking teleport formation in Black teleport area of the Tsunami Chamber of Commerce glowed up. The formation emitted waves of vague energy. This formation was strange. It was rectangular shaped with 4 statues of savage beasts watching the 4 corners. Those monster statues had empty fantasy crystals in their mouths. Their deep eyes sparkled together with the divine crystals under their feet. When the strange formation glowed, the 4 statues roared. The roaring ceased. The divine crystals under the beast's feet turned into ashes and scattered. 2 people appeared. The Tsunami Chamber of Commerce's staff stood by the formation. They fluently took out new divine crystals to replace the ashes underneath the monster. The formation was ready to use again. A guard holding a shining black stone in his hand talked to them. Submit 3,000 top-quality divine crystals. Shangchun smiled and raised his hand. A bright yellow cloud flew up and carried a lot of divine crystals that were sparkling under the sunlight of 9 dazzling suns in the sky. What do you think? He turned to Shiryen. Along the way, he had briefed Shiryen on the situation of the Tsunami Chamber of Commerce, but it wasn't very detailed. He wanted Shiryen to observe it himself. Shiryen turned to look at the magical formation behind him. He was astounded. They used the monster's souls to carve the formation. The person who had designed and built this formation was very excellent and creative. Tsunami Chamber of Commerce has many warriors cultivating space power Upanishad. One of them has reached 3rd sky of incipient god realm. He's stronger than Velo. The Chamber of Commerce's teleport formations are built by their staff who cultivate space power Upanishad. Besides this place, they have 3 other areas that are similar to here with dozens of big and small teleport formation, explained Shangchun. This Chamber of Commerce is very powerful, Shiryen nodded. Chapter 1236, Black Iron City. Chapter 1236, Black Iron City, _ South of Tsunami Star. Many majestic cities built like mountain ranges stood imposingly. Those cities were spacious like giant beasts crouching on the ground. Under the 9 suns, the cities had beautiful halos of iron or jade. This planet had 9 suns and 6 moons. It was so hot in the daylight and bitter cold when the night fell. However, whether it was day or night, the Tsunami Star was illuminating all the time. There was no absolute darkness. There was a city called Black Iron in the south that was built of celestial jet black iron. It was one of the 9 cities of Tsunami Star. There was a teleport formation in the forest outside the city leading to the black area of Tsunami Star. Usually, warriors from other star areas entered Black Iron City first after they teleported here through the black area. Tsunami Star had 9 cities, and each of them was a big trading center with countless shops. At least half of those shops belonged to the Tsunami Chamber of Commerce, and the remaining belonged to many other forces. The Tsunami Star was the most famous business center in the universe. People could buy any cultivating materials at any grade. Even original incipient grade materials weren't rare in the city. It could be said that if something couldn't be found in Tsunami Star, it wouldn't be found elsewhere. The 9 cities of Tsunami Star were arranged in each corner. Each of them was so grand they attracted many warriors from other star areas to come trade. Tsunami Star was where warriors could buy anything including cultivating materials, mineral lodes, mine slaves, and even the life stars. Rumors said that Tsunami Chamber of Commerce used to sell an entire star area. Inside a strange chamber in a training building in Black Iron City, 2 people were cultivating. The ceiling of this chamber had inlaid many 7-colored divine crystals arranged in a particular formation. With a close look, the divine crystals were arranged to create the word water. The tranquilizing energy rippled from that word to help warriors concentrate better. This chamber didn't have a solid ground. There was a water pond that was crystal clear with murmuring water. This chamber was designed to increase the power comprehension of the warriors who cultivated water power Upanishad. It was a special training chamber built by Tsunami Chamber of Commerce. They let the warriors cultivating water power rent this kind of training chamber to cultivate. There were so many similarly customized training chambers including fire, ice, lightning, and all the common powers Upanishads. These special cultivating rooms were aimed at the warriors from different races to accelerate their progress of accumulating energy and advancing their power. These kinds of training buildings were categorized in different levels with different fees. Tsunami Chamber of Commerce managed all of them, and the year-round turnover from this business wasn't something ordinary people could imagine. Inside this water chamber, the pond had many water heart crystals. They were crystals that looked like a heart. A sexy woman was cultivating in the pond and taking in the energy of the water heart crystals to refine her body. She was like a drop of water that became a part of this cultivating room to understand the water power. Sitting by the pond was a white-haired woman. Her eyes were closed as if she was sleeping. After a while, she opened her eyes and revealed glum pupils as if she had to bear a lot of grief. She looked at the melting water heart crystals in the pond and said to the other woman, "It's good now. Your incipient god realm is stable." The sexy woman in the pond was Cecilia. After Desolate had thrown her out, she went directly to Tsunami Star to meet her teacher. She wanted to tell her the events that happened on Desolate and then went directly to Agate Star area. However, Lena, her teacher, had forced her to stay. Cecilia had to use water heart crystals to refine her realm and enter incipient god realm. Before entering Desolate, Cecilia's realm was third sky of ethereal god realm. After 10 years of training on Desolate, her state of mind, will, and understanding of power had gotten over the bottleneck. Also, she was so lucky to collect original incipient grade crystals of water class, the water heart crystal. She got all the things she needed for her breakthrough. Lena had ordered her strictly that she should seize the chance to break through. She had to stay. Under her teacher's protection, she used the special water cultivating room to cultivate and break through to incipient god realm. Lena had collected the magical materials needed to stabilize her incipient god realm from Tsunami Chamber of Commerce. After taking in the power of the water heart crystals, Cecilia's realm was stabilized. Her mind wasn't going to fall in trouble anymore. "Teacher, my realm is stable today. Will you let me go?" Cecilia smiled charmingly as her naked body emerged from the pond. Her skin was like beautifully smooth white jade. She was so eye-catching, like a ripe peach that arose people's desires. "You want to go to Agate Star area to find the young man called Shuryen?" Lena snorted. "It's very difficult for me to find a guiding fruit for you. I expected you to find his remains for me. You didn't do that and instead did something with that man. Now, you tell me that you want to go find him? Tell me, did you even care about your teacher?" "No, I want to find him to talk about that," Cecilia hurried to explain. "He and I had gotten into that strange world, but I was kicked out unknowingly. He must have been kept there. Many things had happened after that continuously, so I didn't have a chance to ask him about that until I was thrown out of Desolate." "You said that you were thrown out, but he wasn't?" Lena was surprised. "I'm sure about that," Cecilia said earnestly. "When he fought Harson, I saw his ethereal extent, which was 70% or even 80% similar to the world that I had intruded. I think he had merged that world into his ethereal extent." Lena was shocked. Cecilia nodded. Lena quieted down and contemplated. After a while, she said faintly, "Then, you don't need to go to Agate Star area. Lately, the God Clan attacked the forces that had helped him counter the God Clan in Agate Star area. Their leaders have come to Tsunami Star. If nothing unexpected happens, the boy you've mentioned should be there too." "Why will he come to Tsunami Star?" Cecilia was surprised. "Because it's safest here. After dozens of thousands of years, although the 4 great creatures have always been fighting, this planet hasn't been affected. Whether it's the Immortal Demon Clan, Imperial Dark Tribe, the God Clan, or Heavenly Monster Tribe, or even the Bloodthirsty Force at their peak of glory, they have never attacked Tsunami Star. Thus, when small forces want to have some secret meetings, the God Clan could capture them at once. But if they do that on Tsunami Star, and even if their information is disclosed, the God Clan can attack them immediately," explained Len. "Teacher, you've met the president of the Tsunami Chamber of Commerce. Who is he after all? Why does even the God Clan not dare to touch Tsunami Chamber of Commerce?" Tsunami Chamber of Commerce's water is really deep. That president is also mysterious and unpredictable. I can't guess what mysteries he embraces. If Shuryen goes to Tsunami Star, how can I meet him? Go find Sha Zhao of the Gu God sect. They're in Black Iron City now. When you meet them, you will also meet the one you wanted to find." "Oh, thank you." Sha Zhao of the Gu God sect, Wu Feng and Wu Bai of the Wu family, Jiao Shan and Jiao Hai of the Jiao family, Mo Fo and Fuller were staying in a mansion in Black Iron City. Accompanying them were leaders of all kinds of forces. This medium-sized mansion was hosting the real leaders of the major star areas. All of a sudden, an old man wearing a cyan brocade costume with a crystal embroidered on the hem and dark green hair draping around his shoulder came with some warriors. The Black Iron City branch manager of Tsunami Chamber of Commerce Tai Dun is coming. A third sky of ethereal god realm warrior standing behind the old man pitched his voice, which had an unconcealed arrogant tone. Being the city guard of Black Iron City of Tsunami Chamber of Commerce, he was respected in every star area he had visited. Also, the leaders and tycoons of many forces had to respect him because he was part of the Tsunami Chamber of Commerce's staff. He considered it his honor. The Tsunami Chamber of Commerce had stood still for dozens of thousands of years in the Sea of Stars. It had started in a small star area and expanded to the entire cosmos. It had become a special force in this universe. Even the four great creatures didn't dare to challenge them in their peak of power. It was the solid confidence of Tsunami Chamber of Commerce and the honor of each member of this incredible organization. The leaders of the forces staying in the mansion were startled when they heard that Tai Dun, the Black Iron City manager, wanted to meet them. Great Elder Muwei of the Gu God sect was a man with an aquiline nose and a sinister appearance. He frowned and looked at the crowd in the secret chamber. He asked, "Who contacted Tai Dun? How come he knows we're gathering here?" Bai Yufeng was Black Wind's sworn brother in Black River Star area. He said, "Naturally, you guys have underestimated Tsunami Chamber of Commerce. They know every small commotion on Tsunami Star. There aren't many secrets that can be concealed from Tsunami Chamber of Commerce or their mysterious president." Jiao Mu of the Jiao family discolored. "If Tsunami Chamber of Commerce knows we're here, I suppose the God Clan does too. I heard that the mysterious president of this Chamber of Commerce has some relationship with the God Clan. If he joins the God Clan to ambush us, aren't we in the tiger's mouth now?" Bai Yufeng waved his hand. If Tsunami Chamber of Commerce and the God Clan walk the same path, the number of the star areas that the God Clan has been invading isn't a small one. Frankly speaking, if Tsunami Chamber of Commerce joined hands with the God Clan, our star areas would have become their vassals for sure. Hearing him, everybody quieted down to contemplate his opinions. After a while, they nodded in agreement. They thought that Bai Yufeng wasn't just exaggerating. Tsunami Chamber of Commerce does have this weight. Don't make assumptions. Let's hear what Tai Dun will say. Bai Yufeng stood up. His figure flashed and disappeared from the secret chamber. He walked directly to the garden in the mansion and raised his voice. "Hey, Tai Dun, my old friend. Long time no see." The others hesitated and stayed in the chamber for a moment before getting out to greet the guests with Bai Yufeng. At the same time, Shangqin and Shi Yan were staying in front of a city gate of black iron. They had to submit divine crystal to get into the city. After making the payment, they stepped in. Too bustling and lively. Shi Yan couldn't hold his compliments as soon as he raked his eyes around the street. Of course, Tsunami Star hasn't been affected by the war for dozens of thousands of years. No one could know how much money and fame it has accumulated. As it's the heart of this universe, how could it not be rich? Smiled Shangqin. Chapter 1237, A Small Jade Box. Chapter 1237, A Small Jade Box, _ In front of the mansion, Bai Yufeng, Jiao Mu, and Mu Wei welcomed the manager of the Black Iron, Tai Dun. This mansion was 100 mu wide with man-made mountains, pavilions, and bridges over small streams. The internal roads were graveled elegantly. Tai Dun walked with Bai Yufeng deep inside the mansion. Standing by a small rockery, he smiled and talked to Bai Yufeng. "This time, you've been so discreet when you come to Black Iron City. You almost got me." Bai Yufeng and Tai Dun were friends. Bai Yufeng had done business with Black Iron City on behalf of Black River Star area for hundreds of years. He had bought many weapons, battleships, and armor from Tsunami Chamber of Commerce to increase the competence of Black River Star area. Tai Dun was the branch manager in Black Iron City. He had personally handled Bai Yifeng's business every time he came. Great Elder Mu Wei of the Gu God sect and Jiao Mu of the Jiao family weren't friends with Tai Dun. Their long-term partner wasn't Black Iron City. They were partnered with other cities on this Tsunami star. Tai Dun had only first sky of incipient god realm, and he cultivated wind power Upanishad. His line of sight glided past Mu Wei and Jiao Mu, his eyes strange. "Brother, why did you pay me a visit this time?" Bai Yifeng pondered for a while and then directly talked about the matter. The guards behind Tai Dun had left already. Even Xia Zhao and Wu Feng weren't qualified to come to this place. Tai Dun spoke with a smile. "My superior asked me to deliver an item." Bai Yifeng was astounded. Tai Dun looked serious when he took a deep breath and carefully took out a small jade box from his sleeve. The jade box glowed in a dim halo with a refreshing aroma. This kind of aroma could refresh and calm down people's minds. Heavenly fragrant souls soothing jade. Mu Wei of the Gu God sect hissed as he looked dumbstruck. "It's true. This jade box is made of heavenly fragrant soul soothing jade," Tai Dun said with a smile. Bai Yifeng, Jiao Mu, and Mu Wei were surprised. They focused on the jade box created by the Heavenly Fragrant Soul Soothing Jade. Heavenly Fragrant Soul Soothing Jade was an original incipient grade material. In this vast universe, this could only be produced in a remote place in Heavenly Fragrant Star area. This jade, called Heavenly Fragrant Soul Soothing Jade, was the top precious treasure of Heavenly Fragrant Star area. Because of this jade, Heavenly Fragrant Star area had changed its owner several times. Currently, the God clan held onto it. Heavenly Fragrant Soul Soothing Jade was precious with magical effects. When people who cultivated power Upanishad held a piece of this jade in their hands, they could ensure their sound minds and placid souls. This jade protected their spirit and soul. A small piece of Heavenly Fragrant Soul Soothing Jade could be used several times. With this jade in their hands, they could ensure their chance of a smooth breakthrough. This kind of Heavenly Fragrant Soul Soothing Jade was precious in the forces and races around the major star areas. Even the leaders of the big forces couldn't have this kind of jade. Besides the tranquilizing function, the Heavenly Fragrant Soul Soothing Jade could be used to preserve items that would never rot. Who should I deliver it to? Bai Yifeng couldn't read Tai Dun's mind. Instinctively, he rose his hand to receive the jade box. When Tai Dun was about to hand the jade box to Bai Yifeng, he suddenly paused and gazed at him. "To the one you are waiting for." Bai Yifeng was surprised. Mu Wei and Jiao Mu were astounded. Then, all of them turned solemn and looked at Tai Dun. "Don't ask me why. My superior asked me to do that. My superior also advised that only that man is eligible to open this box." Tai Dun smiled and put the jade box into Bai Yifeng's hand. "So, please help me, Bai Ji." Bai Yifeng was dumbstruck and he frowned deeply. "Yeah, that's all for today. I'm not going to bother you guys anymore." Tai Dun nodded to greet them. "No need to see me off." He walked out directly. After he gathered his guards, they all left the mansion. They had baffled the others when they came and even when they left. Bai Yifeng held the jade box. He was filled with surprise. He didn't say anything after pondering for a long time. Mu Wei and Jiao Mu eyed the jade box, their faces odd. Tsunami Chamber of Commerce often does weird stuff. "I can't understand anything." Wu Lai of the Wu family was fierce. He couldn't help but shout and then snatch the box. He mumbled, "I want to see what's so precious." He said we weren't qualified to see it. Bai Yifeng was still absorbed in his thought. He couldn't react when Wu Lai suddenly seized the box from his hand. He then saw Wu Lai open the lid. Boom, boom, boom. Wu Lai suddenly backed off 3 steps. The stone ground under his foot exploded and collapsed. 3 waves of tremors expanded to the entire mansion. The pavilions around him collapsed. He was so frightened. Fear arose deep in his eyes. He bewilderedly looked at the jade box on the ground, his heart beating frantically. Mu Wei, Jiao Mu, and Bai Yifeng were so frightened. They looked at the small jade box on the ground with fear. They then observed Wu Lai trying to conceal the shock in his heart. Wu Lai had second sky of incipient god realm cultivation base, and he had ascetically cultivated space power Upanishad. He was a famous warrior of the Wu family. At his realm, it surprisingly took a lot of efforts to open that jade box. Wu Lai. "What happened?" asked Bai Yifeng sternly. Wu Lai was aghast. He took a deep breath and then looked at the jade box in fear. When I was about to open it, a terrifying force had struck my soul altar and almost exploded it. Hearing him, people grimaced. They felt worried when looking at the small jade box. The soul altar was the root and life of a warrior. When it shattered, the warrior's soul perished altogether. At second sky of incipient god realm, Wulai's soul altar had almost broken. What did that box contain? Bai Yifeng's countenance changed unusually. He hesitated for a while and then gingerly covered the piece of rock with the jade on it. He put it on the meeting hall and said solemnly, Tai Dun gave us this item and asked us to deliver it to Shiryan. We should just give it to him then. Guys, don't touch it. People nodded with a forced smile. Headquarters of Tsunami Chamber of Commerce, Black Iron City. The cities of Tsunami Star didn't have city masters. Tsunami Chamber of Commerce assigned their staff to manage the cities because this entire star belonged to them. The Chamber of Commerce had built all those cities. Thus, the headquarters of Tsunami Chamber of Commerce in each city was actually the City Master's Palace. After Tai Dun had bid farewell to Bai Yifeng, he didn't stop along the way. Leaving his guards behind, his figure flashed and returned to the headquarters directly. He entered the secret underground chamber, which was so spacious. Standing in the middle of the room was a massive vertical mirror. A gold light emerged in the middle of Tai Dun's forehead, shining directly on that mirror. The reflection in the mirror changed. A changing shadow slowly emerged in the mirror. However, it continuously twisted and people couldn't see its appearance clearly. I delivered the box to Bai Yifeng of Black River Star Area, reported Tai Dun, his face respectful as he bowed. Yeah, follow them. Once he spot something unusual, report it to me immediately, a husky male voice came from the mirror. Yes, sir, Tai Dun replied. The energy fluctuating in the mirror disappeared. Everything resumed. Tai Dun furrowed his brows and he mumbled, "What's in that box?" Then, he coughed terribly as he had to take out a longan-sized pellet and swallowed it. His face looked malicious at this moment. Just like Wulai, he couldn't control his curiosity when he had just received the box. He opened it to see what it held. His situation was even worse than Wulai's. Both of his hands were almost broken. If he wasn't the manager of Chamber of Commerce and had many precious pellets, his hands would have been disabled. As he was at first sky of incipient god realm, he wasn't as strong as Wulai. Thus, his wounds were much more severe. The item that the president wanted to give to the Bloodthirsty Force's successor isn't ordinary at all. Tai Dun took a deep breath. Although he had fear in his eyes, he hesitated before making up his mind. He activated the mirror once again. The magical light flashed from the mirror. Not long after that, the mirror showed a senile face. Tai Dun's face brightened. He said respectfully, "Elder Fengju." Surprisingly, the man shown in the mirror was Elder Fengju of the God Clan's Elder Committee, who held supreme power in the God Clan. "You must have something if you called me." "Tell me, what business is it?" Fengju squinted. "As long as the intelligence you provide is precious enough like the previous times, I won't mistreat you. The president asked me to deliver a jade box to the Bloodthirsty Force's successor. That box is made of the heavenly fragrant soul-soothing jade. It's so strange. When I attempted to open the box, I got struck by a malicious energy. Both of my hands were almost disabled." Tai Dun pondered and then provided Fengju the intelligence. He had done the same for many years. Through a discreet business with the God Clan, he had collected a huge fortune. He had made many business deals with the God Clan in Tsunami Chamber of Commerce, but his sneaky activities hadn't been figured out yet. Fengju's squinted eyes flared up with a strange divine light while listening to the Tai Dun. He contemplated for a while and then promised Tai Dun, "I'll send my men to hand you the item you want. It should be enough for you to reach second sky of incipient god realm. You keep watching them for me." "All right," Tai Dun agreed immediately. Ancient God Shrine. Ancient God Continent. Fengju was sitting cross-legged by a statue. He opened his eyes, his face grave. The other members of the Elder Committees frowned and looked at him when they saw him awake. Fengju pondered for a while and then talked to Spark. "Spark, go to Tsunami Star now." Spark threw him a glance and then stooped. "I have no time." Fengju frowned and said, Perhaps we got a clue to find the thing we have been looking for so many years. Spark's eyes brightened until they became dazzling. Is it true? He hissed. Feng Zhu nodded. Spark stood up and spoke nonchalantly. All right, I'm heading there. Don't attack the Bloodthirsty Force's successor. He's for Haig. Only overcoming him can help Haig inherit our clan prestige and ruling power. He has to do that himself. No one should help him, reminded Feng Zhu. Spark snorted. He didn't say he agreed or objected it. After a light sway, he disappeared. Seeing Spark leave, Feng Zhu closed his eyes once again. Shortly after, he became like a statue without a soul, and it was like he stopped breathing. Chapter 1238, Bloodthirsty Sora. Chapter 1238, Bloodthirsty Sora, _ Black Iron City is really luxurious. It's worthy as the city of Tsunami Chamber of Commerce and the heart of the universe. It lives up to its reputation. Walking on the streets packed with many warriors and the shops, Shuryen couldn't help but acclaim. Black Iron City was one of the 9 cities on Tsunami Star. However, this city was bigger than Divine Greatland that year. The items showcased on the shelves of the shops could dazzle any person. This city was built of outer space black iron, which was almost unbreakable. Shuryen had secretly tried, and he concluded that normal incipient God Realm experts couldn't break this sort of wall. Tsunami Chamber of Commerce had refined the black iron to make the city extremely tough. Shengchen was like an elegant and unconventional writer as he explained to Shuryen a lot of things about Tsunami Chamber of Commerce. Gradually, they reached the mansion where Mu Wei and the others were staying. Flying was prohibited in Black Iron City. Staying in the city, warriors had to follow Tsunami Chamber of Commerce's rules. Thus, it affected their speed greatly. I'm just in charge of taking you to this place. I won't participate in anything else, Shengchen said all of a sudden. He gritted his teeth and cursed under his breath before talking to Shuryen. After this, I no longer owe your bloodthirsty force anything. Shuryen was surprised. I didn't force you to do anything. Even if you're mad, you shouldn't vent it on me, right? Shengchen nodded and forced a smile. Well, your bloodthirsty force didn't consider anyone. In the past, you guys had offended and caused grudges against many clans and races from many star areas. You're tough, which is why you could survive until now. This time, no one can say beforehand if the bloodthirsty force could rise one more time. Anyway, I actually don't expect you guys to replace the God Clan. People were walking back and forth like running water. Shuryen could see the warriors from many different races getting in and out of the shops on the streets. While Shengchen was talking, he lowered his voice a little bit as if he was afraid of being overheard. Why do you hate the bloodthirsty force? Shuryen frowned. He soon had that feeling. On the ancient continent, Cecilia and Xia Zhao were so frightened when they confirmed his death power Upanishad and his bloodthirsty force's successor identity. At the same time, they didn't conceal that they opposed him. If the God Clan hadn't wanted to kill all the warriors there, surely Xia Zhao, Wu Feng, and the others would have never wanted to go with him. It was his efforts that allowed him to gradually earn their acceptance. He was a sensitive person. After thinking it through, he confirmed that Xia Zhao and Wu Feng weren't offended by his immortal demon identity. What gave them the conflict was his bloodthirsty force's successor identity. As far as he knew, 10,000 years ago before the God Clan, the bloodthirsty force had ruled the universe. Its 8 chiefs were similar to the 12 chiefs of the God Clan. They were infamous in each of the major star areas as they were the supernatural experts with outstanding abilities and grand vision. When the precursor of the God Clan got the Genesis fruit, the entire clan had been boosted. Then, in the alliance with the other clans and forces around the universe to wholly counter the bloodthirsty force, the God Clan had subdued and made the bloodthirsty force's power vanish. It showed the tenaciousness of this force. However, this force was like the God Clan now. They couldn't earn respect from the other warriors. They were even worse than the God Clan in some aspects. I didn't experience those years, but I know that during the era when the bloodthirsty force was so powerful, creatures in many star areas had to live in misery. Many life stars were shattered and bleak. Shangchen contemplated for a while and then continued. The great 8 inheritances of the bloodthirsty force only brought death, destruction, darkness, and chaos to this vast sea of stars. In those years, wherever they went by, entire life stars didn't even have grass survive. They were much more extreme than the God Clan. Shi Yan rubbed his nose and sighed inwardly. The 8 great inheritances of the bloodthirsty force included soul control, death, corrosion, dark, chaos, destruction, despair, and corpse chi. These 8 powers Upanishads were evil and extreme. With these powers Upanishads, of course, the 8 chiefs could be arrogant and tyrannical. They didn't put anybody in their eyes. In that year, when they had massacred everywhere, the God Clan could only survive vulnerably. However, it was because they were too haughty that they had to perish in the end. The bloodthirsty force's master had suddenly appeared in this world. No one knows his identity nor which race he is in. His existence had attracted many extreme experts of the Immortal Demon Clan, Heavenly Monster Clan, God Clan, and Imperial Dark Clan. They left their tribes and served him as their masters. Even now, the God Clan was still investigating his identity. They want to know where he came from and which race he was. The powers Upanishads he cultivated didn't exist in this universe before his arrival. He's the eternal mystery of this sea of stars. Shangchen studied Shi Yan, and then his blood vein rang with a sigh. Shi Yan didn't know what to say, so he kept silent. The bloodthirsty force had done many bad things in the past. Shi Yan understood this. However, he came here from another world. Lao Luo had dragged his soul here and imprinted the vestige of the bloodthirsty force on him. Without the devouring power Upanishad from that master, Shi Yan would never have had his attainment today. He had no way to get rid of the connection with this force. Because of the God Clan's existence, if he didn't resist, they were going to kill him. Thus, he didn't have a choice. Although he knew this force was bad, he had to continue his journey. Only smashing the God Clan and having his realm surpass all principles of this world would allow him to reconsider the working principles of the bloodthirsty force. He would use his mind and power to change it. When they reached the mansion, Shangchen stopped and then said, "They are in there. I can only take you here. I won't participate in your activities anymore." Shangchen left alone before Shi Yan could reply. His back looked lonely, but he looked as if he had just thrown a burden off of his shoulder. As soon as Shi Yan walked into the mansion, Mu Wei, Jiao Mu, and Bai Yifeng walked out of the hall and welcomed him. Xia Zhao, Wu Feng, Mo Fo, and the other juniors were here too. They greeted him with heavy faces and forced smiles. Their star area was being invaded. They were in a really bad situation and they needed help immediately. They were here to discuss the crucial matter and to get more reinforcements. And Shi Yan represented the force that had a power that no one could deny. They needed help from this force. Last time when we were in Agate Star Area, we were in a hurry. This time, let's introduce ourselves properly. Wu Feng was stern. He pointed at the people in the hall and introduced them one by one. My uncle, Wu Lai, is from our Wu family. He's at second sky of incipient god realm cultivating firepower. Precursor Mu Wei, the great elder of the Gu God sect. He has cultivated the supernatural Gu of the Gu God sect at third sky of incipient god realm. Precursor Jiao Mu from the Jiao family. He is at second sky of incipient god realm and cultivates wood power. Bai Yifeng from Black River Star Area. At third sky of incipient god realm, he cultivates lightning power. Sanji, Fuller's uncle, from Earth Ice Star Area. He's at second sky of incipient god realm cultivating earth power. Wu Feng introduced the experts in the hall with a respectful face. Each of them nodded to Shi Yan, but they were actually disappointed. Shi Yan had come here alone. They had thought that Shi Yan would come together with some experts of the bloodthirsty force. Those infamous warriors thrilled them. They had even properly prepared to prevent the awkward situation when they finally met the brutal experts. Unfortunately, Shi Yan came alone. It made them so upset. Although Shi Yan was the successor of the bloodthirsty force's master, he hadn't reached that height of realm. Maybe Shi Yan could reach the height that surprised them in the future, but right now, his influence wasn't really significant, which had upset them a lot. This thing, Tai done, Manager of the Black Iron City, delivered it here personally. He asked me to hand it to you. We guess that the superior of Tsunami Chamber of Commerce decided to do that. We don't know what this box contains. Bai Yifeng took the jade box with the rock and threw them to Shi Yan, his face indifferent. Hesitating for a while, Bai Yifeng said nothing in the end. Wu Feng, Xia Zhao, and the juniors didn't know about this jade box, so they were so curious. Wu Lai, Mu Wei, and the others quivered a bit as they gazed at Shi Yan and the jade box in his hand. All of them had strange looks. They were discontented because no famous warrior of the Bloodthirsty force had come here. They thought that the others looked down on them, so they didn't tell Shi Yan the deadly feature of the small box. They wanted to see Shi Yan tasting the bitter flavor. No one had told him the trap in that box. Tsunami Chamber of Commerce delivered this item? Shi Yan was surprised. He looked baffled when he studied the piece of rock that supported the jade box. He rubbed his chin, grabbed the box, and threw away the rock. The jade box felt really heavy in his hand with a cold aura. It didn't look magical or anything else. Contemplating for a while, he rose his hand to open the box. As soon as his finger touched the lid, a terrifyingly brutal force flooded his soul altar as if he had a bucket of water poured on his head. His body trembled and the entire hall was shaken several times. Cracks appeared thickly on the walls. However, Shi Yan stood still at his spot. He didn't back off as Wu Lai did. He looked frightened, but he seemed to control it well, as if he was listening to something. Mu Wei, Wu Lai, and Jiao Mu looked stiff. They were shocked with concealed gleams of fear. Wu Lai, who had remained at second sky of incipient god realm for so many years, had been struck, and he had to step back to steady his body. And Shi Yan, the one who had just entered incipient god realm, didn't have to step back. He was as solid as a 10,000 years old rock. From only this event, did this prove that Shi Yan was stronger than Wu Lai? Everybody was astonished. They looked at the lid of the box to see if he had opened it yet. They looked disappointed as the lid of the box didn't even move. The designated person that Tsunami Chamber of Commerce had mentioned couldn't open it. This made the others more curious. I could feel my master's aura. At the same time, Shi Yan heard the ring spirit's voice in his head. The ring spirit had woken after a long time of staying silent. The aura inside the box had wakened it up. Shi Yan furrowed his brows. He held the jade box and asked, "Please arrange me a secret chamber." "Follow me." Xia Zhao was the first one to react to his request while the others were still baffled. Shi Yan immediately walked after him. Chapter 1239, One Finger. Chapter 1239, One Finger, _ It was an ordinary stone chamber. "Don't let anyone disturb me," Shi Yan told Xia Zhao. Xia Zhao nodded and left the room without a question. Among the group of Wu Feng, Mo Fo, and the Jiao brothers, Xia Zhao was the first one who had a conflict with Shi Yan. When they had just arrived at Desolate, they had fought some deadly battles. Xia Zhao used to hate Shi Yan a lot. At that time, he always wanted to kill Shi Yan. After a series of incidents, they had to join hands to resist against the God Clan. When Xia Zhao had been in trouble several times, Shi Yan didn't care about their grudge to save him. Gradually, he had changed Xia Zhao's attitude towards him. When Shi Yan and Audrey had different opinions, Xia Zhao was the first one who decided to follow Shi Yan. The friendship between Xia Zhao and Shi Yan had evolved from hatred. Thus, it was deeper than the relationships between Shi Yan and Wu Feng and Mo Fo. Xia Zhao had changed his mind not only because of Shi Yan's identity. Xia Zhao left the room and then stood indifferently on the stone corridor, his face dark and glum. He could see that Wu Lai and Jiao Mu were discontented because the Bloodthirsty force didn't send an expert to the meeting. They were truly disappointed, though. Hollow Fearsome Star area wasn't in good condition now, as the God Clan was invading them slowly with their power. The influence of the Gu God sect in Hollow Fearsome Star area was reduced. As time ticked by, many smaller forces in the star area had started favoring the God Clan. If the Gu God sect couldn't show their power and competence that was enough to counter the God Clan, more and more forces in their star area would have fallen into the God Clan's embrace. The situations of the Wu family and the Jiao family weren't very different. Xia Zhao was also anxious. He didn't care about the threat in his star area, so he came to Tsunami's star discreetly. He understood that if they couldn't gather a force that could overturn the situation, the Gu God Sect's position in hollow fearsome star area was going to be shaken hard. A gold-armored toxic bug buzzed and appeared in front of Xia Zhao. It silently changed and projected the face of the Gu God Sect's great elder Mu Wei. He looked at Xia Zhao and said darkly, "Did you find anything?" Xia Zhao looked at Mu Wei's projection from the insect and frowned nothing. "Our Gu God Sect situation isn't good. We need reinforcements. You're the designated future sect master. I hope you will strive for the Gu God Sect." Mu Wei's face disappeared. The gold armor toxic bug buzzed and disappeared. Xia Zhao wore a dark and glum face. He stood by the door of the stone chamber without talking. After a while, he snorted. Mu Wei was the great elder of the Gu God Sect who he couldn't get along well. He had killed Mu Wei's disciple, the one who had the hope to replace him to be the new star of the Gu God Sect. Because of this, there was always a barrier between Mu Wei and Xia Zhao. However, when they decided to help Agate's star area, Mu Wei was so supportive. He looked even more hurried than Xia Zhao. The sect master was also surprised as he couldn't explain why Mu Wei was so enthusiastic about giving reinforcement to Agate's star area since he had always opposed Xia Zhao's ideas. Xia Zhao knew something was strange here. Mu Wei was the great elder of the Gu God Sect, but he was based year-round in the underworld area in the west of Hollow Fearsome Star area. The underworld was a peculiarly cold area in Hollow Fearsome Star area that even the sect master didn't know what hid in there. Mu Wei used to cultivate for more than 100 years in the underworld. After he had reached Incipient God Realm and become an elder, he had proactively asked to base in the west area. That far west area was the most desolate area in the entire Hollow Fearsome Star area. All the other elders were afraid of that tough land, and only he had asked to stay there. The Gu God Sect's master didn't have a clue. Since then, he had paid attention to that elder. Gale, who had a good relationship with Xia Zhao, was assigned to watch over this. Gale had seized the chance when Mu Wei returned to the headquarters to visit the underworld Glacial Valley. He had discovered a terrifying thing. Deep in the bitter cold underworld inside a glacier, he saw another Mu Wei. Gale reported this to the sect master. However, the sect master had concealed this and forbidden Gale to tell anyone else. However, as Gale thought that Xia Zhao was going to step on a glorious peak and become the next sect master since he had survived the ancient continent, Gale bet everything on the young man. He had told him the secret. Mu Wei here and the Mu Wei in the glacier in the underworld Glacial Valley. Who is the real one? Who is the other one? Xia Zhao mumbled to himself, his eyes dark and inexplicable. The stone chamber. The blood vein ring flew out, glowing in a blood-red halo. It had dyed the entire room crimson. All of a sudden, it released a brutal aura. "My master's aura diffuses from that box," said the ring spirit. After the ring spirit had collected its full memory, it didn't become closer to Shuryen. Quite the contrary, it was quite distant to him. After its memory was complete, it had a powerful consciousness, and thus, it concealed a lot of things from Shuryen. Many times when Shuryen was in trouble, he had asked the ring spirit to explain his doubt, and it didn't answer. The ring spirit seemed to be sealed as it didn't release a single beam of aura. This time, when he touched the box that Tsunami Chamber of Commerce had delivered, the dormant ring spirit talked to him. Bloodthirsty's aura. Shuryen was shaken hard. His hand holding the jade box quivered in thrill and curiosity. Bloodthirsty was the master of the Cortege of Eight and also the owner of the blood vein ring. 10,000 years ago, he was almost invincible in this universe. His appearance had directly restructured the Sea of Stars and changed the rule of the four great creatures, taking turns to control the world. He had made the experts of those forces betray their own kind to follow him. The 8 great inheritances imparted by Bloodthirsty had discolored the cosmos. He was the main character of the modern time and the one who was worth the title of the first expert of the world. That year, it cost the lives of countless experts of the God Clan who had joined hands with many supernatural experts and demons in the entire Sea of Stars to destroy him. The rumors of that brute had been told in every strong force. It was truly a powerful force worthy of people talking about in this sea of stars. His name had freaked people out. Many old experts and monsters couldn't relax because of him. It had been many years, but the God Clan's Elder Committee still had to have regular meetings because of this name. He was the real overlord of the Sea of Stars. Holding the jade box, Shiryan's arm shivered. He took a deep breath to calm down and asked how to open it. "I'll do that," answered the ring spirit. The bright blood light emitted from the ring and then condensed into a massive bloody hand, which had only 3 fingers. It didn't look like it was from any humanoid race, but some monster. The blood hand grabbed the lid and waited for a few seconds. Crack! The lid was lifted up. Boom! The deadly brutal energy rocketed like a massive blood sea flooding everywhere. In that short moment, the thick murderous aura had created an enormous phantom of a Demogorgon right above the mansion. All the experts on Tsunami Star had a strong vibe in their souls. Many incipient God Realm experts became restlessly anxious. This fear was gone for years, and now it had just come back. From the far distance, they looked at Black Iron City. Their eyes were baffled, and they also grimaced. Inside the mansion, Mu Wei, Wu Lai, Jiao Mu, Bai Yifeng, and Sanji were shivering. They were scared out of their wits as they were watching the blood phantom in the sky. Inside the stone chamber, Shiryan's face reddened as if he had many mountains pressing down on his back. He couldn't stand such force as he kneeled down on one knee. Boom, boom, boom. The ground of this chamber exploded. Because of Shiryan kneeling down, the entire mansion had to endure an earthquake. Many buildings and pavilions collapsed. His crimson eyes gazed at the thing inside the box, his face so shocked. It was a finger, a peculiar long finger. It was as long as a whole human arm and as big as a child's arm. This finger was dark blue with many exquisite and complex, archaic patterns that were exactly the same as the patterns on the blood vein ring. There was a ring mark on a section of the finger, which was obviously created by wearing a ring for a long time. This dark blue finger looked as if it was molded out of iron or steel. The finger emitted a brutal, earth-shaking aura. Looking at the finger, Shiryan felt like he was watching an unceasing current of blood that could swarm and knock his soul altar down. He couldn't even gather his thoughts to resist. The blood light flashed once again as the blood vein ring flew over and slid itself onto the finger. At that moment, the finger seemed to revive. The incredible energy was released with the auras of 8 different powers Upanishads, including soul control, death, corrosion, dark, chaos, destruction, despair, and corpse chi. The ring mark on that dark blue finger was now covered by the blood vein ring as if it was always there and had never left. Waves of terrifying energy grumbled and became even fiercer. This kind of energy ran directly into people's souls. The experts in Black Iron City and in the entire Tsunami Star were affected. They felt like a creepy demon was watching them. Everybody was freaked out. Mu Wei, Bai Yifeng, and Wu Lai stayed inside the mansion. They had blood oozing out from their mouths and nostrils. They paled as they had to bear an incredible pressure. Shiryan was kneeling on one knee, one hand holding the jade box. Blood trickled from his mouth. He found that the connection between him and the ring spirit was cut off as soon as it slid on that finger. He was so terrified. Pondering for seconds, he closed the lid of the box without a bit of hesitation. An earth-shaking murderous aura flooded his head when he touched the lid. It stormed into his soul altar and attempted to take the black hole there to the lid of the box. It terrified him furthermore. Shiryan gathered his spirit, soul, and chi, making a hand to grab the black hole and pull it back. His other hand holding the jade box released it. When he didn't contact the box directly, the energy that had invaded his soul disappeared. At that moment, the earth-shaking murderous aura above Black Iron City vanished into thin air. Wu Lai, Mu Wei, and the others weren't put under pressure anymore. With a pale face, they sat cross-legged on the ground and hurried to use the pellets to treat their soul altar. Although they grimaced, they didn't hurry to ask Shiryan what had just happened. The stone chamber was now a ruin of rock. Shiryan looked at the jade box on a pile of rock, his complexion changing. The ring spirit left his finger and slid itself on that dark blue finger. It had cut off the connection with him too. A series of actions happened too fast he couldn't react. Looking at the jade box, Shuryen felt cold inwardly. He observed the jade box and kept silent for a long time. In the end, he waved his hand to put the box into his fantasy sky ring. Chapter 1240. Puzzled. Chapter 1240. Puzzled, _ Two people were watching the street on a tower of hundreds of meters tall at a corner of Black Iron City. Not far from them was that mansion where the earth-shaking murderous aura had just soared up. "Teacher," Cecilia cried, her charming face pale. "What is that phantom of Demogorgon?" She had just found the mansion where Xia Zhao and the others were staying, so she stood on this tower to watch with her teacher, Lena. While she was thinking to get there, the terrifying aura had shot up into the sky. It had covered the entire city and astounded people. As she stood near there without her teacher's help, her soul was going to collapse under such pressure. Then, Cecilia was standing on the high tower to watch that mansion from a distance. She was aghast. Within 100 miles around that mansion, there were bodies of hundreds of thousands of dead warriors scattered. They died in strange positions. Some were buying things while others were having fun. They remained at their positions, but their soul altars were all broken. They didn't have a bit of vitality in their bodies. The warriors under Ethereal God Realm died everywhere, inside and outside that mansion. "It's his aura." Lena was frightened, her face grimaced. He had fallen for so many years. "Why did we see his aura today?" "It's the master of the bloodthirsty force?" asked Cecilia. "It must be him." Lena contemplated for a while and then said, "When this man swaggered around the universe, I was still very young. My realm at that time wasn't as high as yours now. But my teacher used to join that battle. She had joined hands with the God Clan to attack that man. After that battle, she came back, and not long afterward, her soul vanished after a period of being corroded by his power. Before she died, she told me that before that man was killed, his body had fragmented. Countless pieces of his body had disappeared into space slits. It has been so many years, and the God Clan hasn't given up on the mission of finding those pieces of his body. But they got nothing." Lena paused for seconds and watched the mansion down there. The aura we'd seen should be from the fragments of his body. Cecilia discolored in fright. Only a piece of his body, and it could shatter the soul altars of the warriors at Ethereal God Realm. "It's true." Lena looked as if she was still scared. "I have never seen him before. My teacher had cooperated with the leading experts from the major star areas to fight him. During that battle, they had smashed several star areas. The shockwaves from their battle reached a far distance and killed many warriors around. A piece of his body had such terrifying power." Cecilia was aghast. "Teacher, it's just half a step, and you can enter Immortal realm. That man, what realm does he have at that time? How could he be so intimidating like that?" Cecilia managed to ask after a long time. Lena gave her a forced smile. "My teacher was in Immortal realm at that year. That's why she was qualified to join the operation of killing him. However, my teacher was attacked by his corroding power. After that battle, she had done many things to get rid of it. She failed. Eventually, her soul altar rotted to death. You can tell how strong he was." "What realm were you at?" asked Cecilia. "You shouldn't ask much. The more you know, the more pressure you will bear. It will be a detriment to your realm's advancement." Lena sighed. "Wait until I can break that barrier to enter the Immortal realm. Then I will be able to know how strong he was." Brock office of the Chamber of Commerce in Black Iron City. Tai Dun had sweat beaded on his forehead. He looked in the direction of that mansion and talked to a man standing in front of him. "Elder Spark, you could sense that aura. You don't need me to say more, right?" Tai Dun put away a brocade box carefully. He looked delighted. That brocade box kept the item that Feng Ju had promised him. It could help him break through to second sky of incipient God realm. Spark was like an iceberg. He nodded and said no more. He looked at the massive mirror in the center of the secret chamber and then disappeared after a flash. Tai Dun waited for a long time before activating the mirror. He then reported, "President, sir. Black Iron City is in trouble. The jade box we delivered was opened." Shuryen got to the surface through a stone corridor. He looked really disheveled. Xia Zhao had blood on his chest as he looked at Shi Yan with feeble eyes. He reluctantly got a hold of himself and said huskily, "You got out eventually." Mu Wei, Bai Yifeng, Wu Lai, Jiao Mu, Sanji, Wu Feng, Mo Fo, and Sanji were standing there too. The juniors all looked tired and wounded. "I think we should hurry to go to Black Iron City," shouted Wu Lai. Shi Yan glanced at him. "When you opened the Jade box, hundreds of thousands of people died in this city. I'm afraid that Tsunami Chamber of Commerce was planning to take revenge," Bai Yifeng explained. Shi Yan frowned, but he said nothing. He came to Tsunami Star this time because Frederick had asked Shang Qin to do that. The Bloodthirsty force had some plan to send him here. However, Shi Yan wasn't so sure if the purpose of that chief of one force of the Bloodthirsty force was for him to visit this place. However, Shi Yan was shocked when he heard that hundreds of thousands of warriors had to die because he had opened the Jade box. He felt so wrong. And now, the blood vein ring was worn on that finger, so he didn't dare to touch the Jade box anymore. He couldn't have any method to know more secrets from the ring spirit. For the time being, he felt so puzzled about the future. Black Iron City isn't the place we discuss a big business. We're here just to wait for you. The people from Thousand Fantasy Sect and the Broken Hall are in Cold Iron City. We should go there, suggested Mu Wei, his eyes having a dim halo. Thousand Fantasy Sect? Broken Hall? Cold Iron City? Shi Yan was puzzled. Thousand Fantasy Sect and the Broken Hall are the two extremely powerful forces in this universe. In fact, the League to resist the God Clan between our star areas is led by these two forces. Anyway, the warriors of Thousand Fantasy Sect and Broken Hall were killed too early on Desolate. They couldn't contact you there. Since they didn't join the operation in Agate Star area, the God Clan didn't attack them. Before we came here, we have invited Thousand Fantasy Sect and the Broken Hall to unite with us to counter the God Clan. Mu Wei explained simply. However, they wanted to meet the person in authority of the Bloodthirsty force. They wanted to discuss with you guys to see what we should do. Thousand Fantasy Sect and Broken Hall are intimidating. Besides the God Clan and the four great creatures, they are the strongest forces in the Sea of Stars. If we get their support, we can dissolve the God Clan's threat, intervened Bai Yifeng. As you created such a terrifying commotion in this Black Iron City, I'm sure we can't stay here anymore. What do you think? Xia Zhao looked at Mu Wei, his eyes sinister. He always thought that Mu Wei was having some conspiracy and Bai Yifeng didn't sound right, either. Xia Zhao and Mo Fo used to discuss a lot before this meeting. Xia Zhao knew that Bai Yifeng didn't appreciate Mo Fo. He thought that Mo Fo was just a playboy and that he wasn't eligible to inherit Black Wind's legacy. However, Bai Yifeng had supported Mo Fo wholeheartedly in the Agate Star Area's operation. He had even tried to contact a strong force to help them. Mu Wei and Bai Yifeng were somehow similar. They cared about this union a lot, and they were the most active people when going to Tsunami Star for the summit meeting. There wasn't so much to say. If the meeting in Tsunami Star could be successful, it was because of Mu Wei and Bai Yifeng for their efforts in planning and contacting the Thousand Fantasy Sect and the Broken Hall. When Xia Zhao noticed that Mu Wei and Bai Yifeng had each other's back as they wanted to take Shi Yan to Cold Iron City, he had a feeling that these two had already discussed with each other beforehand, so they had understood each other tacitly. They treated Shi Yan with ambiguity, indeed. Xia Zhao eyed Shi Yan. Shi Yan was indifferent, as if he was having something in his mind whether he should follow Mu Wei and Bai Yifeng's suggestion or not. When he was still hesitant, a flaming meteor shot over. A freezing aura diffused like a thick mist. Shortly after, it chilled people's soul and frosted them. Swoosh! A shadow appeared in the mansion. It was Spark of the God Clan's Elder Committee. He shot a look at Mu Wei, Bai Yifeng, Jiao Mu, Sanji, and Wu Lai, talking with squinting eyes. You guys should capture this kid and hand me the Jade box. Spark, ensure that our battleships will leave your star areas immediately. We won't attack you anymore. His dark eyes emitted cold lights as if they could actually turn into billions of cold threads covering the entire mansion. People under his gaze felt their blood slowly stop moving in their veins and their soul altar stop spinning. Gradually, they felt dispirited as if they were losing power and becoming ordinary people. Shuryen experienced this much deeper than the others. As Spark was gazing at him, many cold threads appeared in his sea of consciousness. They moved and screamed ear-piercingly as if they had their own consciousness. They swaggered everywhere in his sea of consciousness like shuttles that froze his soul consciousness. A beam of power Upanishad with the consciousness of a living being was the sign of reaching Immortal Realm. Although Spark wasn't a real Immortal Realm expert, he had at least found some powerful abilities of this realm. The cold threads were still screaming and winding his sea of consciousness. Slowly, his consciousness was frozen together with his thoughts. Your god clan has carried out massacres in our hollow fearsome star area, and now you talk like nothing has happened. It's not that easy, Mu Wei shouted. If you were at Immortal Realm, of course, you could do anything you want today. But too bad, you've just taken a step in there. You still need a bit more to officially enter Immortal Realm. Right. I also want to see if you can act haughty in front of us, laughed Bai Yifeng. Xia Zhao became more puzzled. Under Spark's threat, Mu Wei and Bai Yifeng were the first ones who reacted, which had surprised Xia Zhao a lot. Heavenly soul-eating goo. Mu Wei sneered, his body shaking. Countless goo insects emerged from his body like clouds. Those goo insects were so peculiar. They screeched and their twittering was ear-piercing as they were fiercely swarming towards Spark. Bai Yifeng looked focused. The sky above his head immediately had billions of lightning bolts that were grumblingly thundering in the sky. They had shaken the entire Black Iron City. Countless bolts of lightning cast a downpour on Spark like a flood current as if they attempted to kill Spark in one strike. At the same time, Shuryen summoned his co-soul. A soul made of flames emerged in his sea of consciousness. Billions of flames like fireflies burned his sea of consciousness quickly. His frozen consciousness was restored. Chapter 1241, Meticulous Arrangement. Chapter 1241, Meticulous Arrangement, _ Mu Wei, the great elder of the Goo God sect, shivered and countless insects flew out from his body. Bai Yifeng was drawing billions of lightning bolts from the sky. In the savage thunder, lightning directly struck Spark. Seizing the chance, Shuryen summoned his co-soul and used the flaming origin to melt down the frost in his soul. He regained his sound consciousness. It's true that I've made half a step into the Immortal Realm, but this half step isn't something you could deal with. Spark shouted coldly. His eyes turned dark when the incipient extent like a picture of the world unfolded above his head. It was a world of darkness and chaos with mournful screeching and shrieking. Right after that, people saw millions of skulls emerged from his incipient extent. Those skulls belonged to creatures from different races. All of them were ash-gray without any piece of skin remained. Their empty sockets had cold, dark flames. Millions of skulls moved in the sky like the cold-in lanterns. The screeching and screaming that the skulls were making attempted to swallow the evil thoughts in people's minds. The insects flew out from Mu Wei's body, flew in clouds and shadowed the sky. However, they were swallowed by skulls and then frozen by the flames in their empty sockets before they could reach Spark. The cold-in power that Spark had cultivated was the fusion of yin qi and the extremely cold energy. It was indeed special. Although he had just made half a step into Immortal Realm, his power in this battle had surpassed Mu Wei's at third sky of incipient God Realm. The lightning bolts that Bai Yifeng had struck out were dissolved easily. Spark skulls piled up in the sky and created a massive ash-gray skull, which was made of millions of the small skulls. In the next moment, it opened its mouth and sucked the bolts of lightning, swallowing them all. The colossal skulls floated in the world above Spark's head. Its empty sockets with the sparkling dark flames gazed at Shuryen. A sinister thought that frightened the soul shot out from the skull's eyes and aimed at Shuryen's host soul. The void's 9 layers. Shuryen discolored slightly. He urged his power Upanishad, his god power circulating like electrical lights. The void in front of him changed all of a sudden. It layered up in 9 tiers. 9 blocks of space piled up and created a tenacious defense. This secret spatial ability of the space power Upanishad came from Bello. Using the god power to guide and pile the spatial blocks up to 9 layers, he could have prevented all kind of visible and invisible attacks. The evil thought from the skull above Spark's head thrust it into the spatial defense and created a sound like a sharp spear cutting the fabric tent. The 9 layers of the void twisted and crushed like a sword cutting through white brocade sheets. The tearing sounds emerged when the void layers were cut through. Ouch! Spark hissed. He was astounded. He then pointed at his glabella. A cold river flowed out of his incipient extent. This river was refined from the moon sky river deep inside the universe. It had the aura of the moon, which was suitable for his state of mind and power Upanishad, providing him with endless magical powers. The river then poured on the layers of the void. The cold aura could pierce through that tremendous defense quickly. It attempted to cover Shuryen instantly. Until this moment, Mu Wei and Bai Yifeng shot the next attacks and shouted, "Join us to counter him." Hearing them shouting, Wu Lai, Jiao Mu, and Sanji, the 3 experts at second sky of ethereal god realm, couldn't think much but attack instinctively. Wu Lai opened his mouth and spurted out a fireball. The core of his fireball was a dry sun, which was burning because of his power Upanishad and god power. The solar nucleus of the fireball flared up with light waves and attack spark. The dry sun was also a sun. While its nucleus was spinning inside, it released heat waves, which then wore out the cold power of the massive skull in Spark's incipient extent. Jiaomu had wooden textiles on his body. A world-towering ancient tree flew out of his incipient extent with the power of the endless forest. Its branches and leaves became vines that wound around the skull in the void. Sanji cultivated earth power Upanishad. A 100 meters tall earth puppet arose from the ground of the mansion, which looked pretty similar to Sanji. Amazingly, it had life energy fluctuating from its body. The earth puppet roared, then stormed towards Spark's body. Mu Wei, Bai Yifeng, Wu Lai, Jiao Mu, and Sanji were at incipient god realm. Mu Wei and Bai Yifeng were at third sky of incipient god realm, and the other 3 were at second sky of incipient god realm. The 5 of them had joined hands to attack Spark and rose earth-shaking tremors that scared all the warriors staying in Black Iron City. Spark had just made half a step into the Immortal realm, so he wasn't really an Immortal realm expert, even though his soul thought so. However, with the cooperation of the other 5 experts, Spark stood still. The millions of skulls and moon sky river of his had dissolved their attacks. He still didn't look dispirited, and he still had the energy to mock others. The true meaning of the Immortal realm is the origin of time power Upanishad. Once you touch the threshold, you can return to the origin of your power Upanishad. The marvelous abilities of this realm aren't something you can imagine. He sneered, but he hadn't attacked Shuryen yet. The Coldine River was like a gray shadow emitting cold lights in his incipient extent. The lights then turned into symbols that made them chilled to the bones and had the aura of living things. Divine power Upanishad. Lena looked amazed at the tower not far from the battle. She nodded and then said, "Spark is about to reach Immortal realm. His incipient extent can create the life magnetic field, which only Immortal realm experts can do. He now just needs a chance to transform his soul." Cecilia frowned and looked at Shuryen, who was temporarily safe because Spark had changed his target. She said worriedly, "Teacher, how are you compared to Spark?" "We're at the same level," Lena answered casually. "I can't beat him up, but he can't defeat me, either. Our competence is not very different. If Shuryen meets fatal dangers later, teacher, you must help him." "I think Shuryen could know that man's whereabouts." Cecilia tried to convince her teacher. Lena didn't react, her eyes cold and faint. If the Bloodthirsty force let him visit Black Iron City and stir up the wind here, I'm sure that they have some meticulous arrangement. "I don't think that there's a member of their force in the city." "Don't worry. He's Bloodthirsty's successor. He won't be killed easily. Just wait and watch." "I hope so," Cecilia said bitterly. Spark used his own power to fight with 5 ethereal god realm experts, and he didn't fall into the lower hand. At the moment, he didn't aim at Shuryen, but control the millions of skulls in his incipient extent and the Yin River. While fighting, he continuously looked in a specific direction as if he was waiting for something. Shuryen floated in the void, and behind him were so many space slits weaving with each other. The outer space streamers and strong guts shot out of the cracks continuously. Spark had a profound and unpredictable realm. He had understood the meaning of the immortal realm. If Mu Wei, Bai Yifeng, and the others didn't join hands to protect him, Shi Yan could have never escaped. Shi Yan had opened the space cracks behind him and let them stand by. In case the situation didn't turn well, he was going to have to run away immediately. At the gate of Black Iron City, Audrey had just gotten into the city. She was shocked, looking at the battle not far from her. It's strange that some experts are fighting in Black Iron City. Tsunami's star didn't forbid warriors from fighting individually, only for legions or fleets. Thus, the God Clan's fleet couldn't come here to have a bloody star war. However, the Tsunami star couldn't interfere too much in individual fights as long as they didn't destroy the city's structure or affect the planet. Anyway, the battle over there had shaken the entire city. Those warriors didn't care about Tsunami Chamber of Commerce's regulations. This surprised Audrey a lot. That's Elder Spark of the God Clan, the old Imperial Dark expert standing behind her snorted. He said, "It has been many years and I haven't seen him. I didn't expect that he would still be alive and healthy. Let's go there and check him out." The old man and Audrey turned into a dark soul light and flashed to travel through thousands of miles in just a blink. They disregarded the Tsunami Chamber of Commerce's regulation too. At the same time, another brilliant light was shooting towards the mansion. It was Haig, surprisingly. Dash. Swoosh. The brilliant light shot over and a man wearing the beautiful armor of the God Clan appeared in the mansion. This man had wise and deep eyes. "Haig," Shi Yan hissed. "Why you were late?" Spark asked impatiently and frowned. "Fengju said that this kid belongs to you. I hope you can seize this good chance. Just kill him. You don't need to care about others. I'll take care of them for you. Tsunami Chamber of Commerce doesn't dare to interfere with our God Clan's business anyway." "Thank you, Elder." Haig bowed to him. Spark waved his hand. "Do it." Haig looked at Shi Yan, his eyes bright with an unrestrained, excited light. "You've reached incipient God realm. Good. Only defeating you when we have the equivalent competence wouldn't make me feel bad. When we fought each other on Desolate, I had to press my realm to stay in ethereal God realm. Today, I don't need to restrain myself for worry that Desolate would aim at me if my realm could break through. I want to see how long you can endure my power today." Haig was so enthusiastic. From the day he was confined, he had longed for this battle. He wanted to use Shi Yan's blood to wash his failure on the ancient continent. Dash. It's Haig. Turns out Spark was waiting for him. Lena screamed in surprise. She closed her eyes to sense for a while. Immediately, she discolored in fright. Haig's very powerful. The aura on his body is even stronger than Wu Lai's team. If Shi Yan has to fight with Haig only, Shi Yan will be the winner. Cecilia pouted her lips. As he could surprise Haig on the ancient continent, he could still do it again here. Haig's the future leader that the God Clan has spent efforts to nurture. His power Upanishad is magical. He's placid and smart. It's true that he could have reached the incipient God realm earlier. He had to press down his realm just to take the chance to go to the ancient continent. Today, he doesn't have such pressure. Haig isn't the Haig at that time. He doesn't have a knot in his heart anymore. Lena said with a solemn face, Shi Yan couldn't be his opponent in this battle. "No, he will win," Cecilia said stubbornly. Lena was amazed. She smiled, shaking her head. She didn't comment more. A soul light emerged on the opposite tower. Audrey and Gillette of the Imperial Dark Tribe appeared, watching the battle out there. Chapter 1242, Outstanding Heroes Stir Up. Chapter 1242, Outstanding Heroes Stir Up, _ There were hundreds of thousands of corpses scattered around the mansion in different positions. The ones who were still alive were at least at ethereal God realm. Around the mansion were many stone towers where people could observe the commotions inside the mansion. Lena and Cecilia stood on a tower while Audrey and Gillette, the Imperial Dark experts, were standing on the opposite tower. Besides these two stone towers, there were many other towers with vague shadows standing. They were all watching Haig of the God Clan and Shi Yan, the representative of the Bloodthirsty force. After they had arrived at the stone tower, Gillette's brows twitched. The dim souls like shadows detached from his god body. He furrowed his brows, his face awkward. Interesting. What? Asked Audrey, her voice cold and clear. Did you notice the surroundings? Gillette blinked. How many stone towers are there in this mansion? Audrey's line of sight raked through the place. 13 towers. Some of them looked new. Each of the stone towers stood firm and scattered around the mansion where Shiryen, Muwei, and the others stayed. Those towers remained a safe distance from the battle. Some of them had marks of newly built buildings. Those stone towers looked shabby, as if they were abandoned for a long time. It was really strange in the city where every square meter was as expensive as gold. 13 stone towers, and each of them has experts hiding. They belong to different forces. Gillette looked surprised. Then, he said, "Now I understand why your mother wanted me to escort you." Audrey was astounded. The hotshots of the Thousand Fantasy sect stay there. He pointed at another tower. The Broken Hall's experts stay there. He looked at the opposite tower and paused for a while. Oh, Lena is standing opposite to us. Lena of the Heaven River Temple? Audrey was astounded. She then lowered her voice. Cecilia, the one I met on the ancient continent, should be her disciple. What made Lena come here personally? The Thousand Fantasy sect, the Broken Hall, and the Heaven River Temple are forces that rank right behind the God Clan and our Imperial Dark Tribe. Of course, they have a purpose of gathering here today. Gillette paused and then continued. The experts of the other forces stay in the other stone tower. I think they had some intelligence, so they all came and hid in those towers. You mean that someone has arranged all of this? Audrey suddenly got it. Gillette nodded. Yeah, meticulous arrangement. And I think your mother knows who is behind all of this. We're here, right? What does the person who has arranged this want to do? Audrey was suspicious. She frowned and looked at the ground where Shiryen and Haig were standing. A flash of recognition crossed her mind. She got something. Is it true that those forces want to use the result of the battle between Shiryen and Haig to choose a side? I think so. Gillette gave a slight nod, his face strangely stern. 10,000 years ago, the God Clan had united the forces everywhere to resist against the Bloodthirsty force. At that time, the Thousand Fantasy sect, the Broken Hall, and the Heaven River Temple had joined hands with the God Clan and helped them destroy the Bloodthirsty force. The forces of the Thousand Fantasy sect, the Broken Hall, and the Heavenly River Temple had contributed the most efforts. Without them, the God Clan wouldn't have had the victory in the end. Today, these forces gather again in those stone towers. Gillette said in a low-pitched voice, Haig is the new leader of the God Clan and Shiryen is the Bloodthirsty successor. These two represent the God Clan and the Bloodthirsty force. I wonder if the forces observing this battle would choose their side after they know the result and compare the young men's competences? Audrey sounded surprised. Your mother had sent you and me here. She may consider this too. Haig got the inheritance of his ancestral star and Shiryen also got the inheritance of the ancient continent. If nothing unexpected happens, they will be the leaders of these two forces respectively. After this battle, their roles in their forces would become more crucial. The other forces will possibly assess the fighting competence of these two young men. This assessment will affect their choice when they choose a side to support, said Gillette. Audrey's beautiful eyes were glum and dim as she mumbled. Why is our tribe ineligible to join this? Gillette forced a smile and sighed. If you could take the Genesis fruit on Desolate, you would have been one of the warriors in this battle, he thought. Too bad. Spark stopped fighting like a glacier that stopped flowing. He even stepped back and said, We're not the main characters of this battle. He looked at Muwei and Bai Yifeng. Muwei and Bai Yifeng looked confused. A vague shadow flashed in their eyes. Muwei and Bai Yifeng looked baffled for a while and then nodded. This battle is the competition between the God Clan and the Bloodthirsty force. We just need to watch it. Muwei told Jiao Mu, Sanji, and Wu Lai. As Spark doesn't participate in this, we should do the same. What do you think? Said Bai Yifeng. Jiao Mu, Sanji, and Wu Lai were bewildered. They were inexplicably confused. They didn't know that someone was behind the scene to encourage the battle between Shiryen and Haig. Mu Wei and Bai Yifeng were just the ones bearing this task. Jiao Mu, Sanji, and Wu Lai didn't know that this battle would determine the trend of the major forces in the near future, either. Choosing the God Clan or the Bloodthirsty force was a consequence of this battle. They were very confused about Mu Wei, Bai Yifeng, and Spark as they stopped fighting now. Seeing Spark just stand there and cross his arms in front of his chest to watch, they also decided to step aside and watch the battle. These three were just sacrificing pawns without knowing any conspiracy. Even Mu Wei and Bai Yifeng were puzzled from time to time when the vague shadow flashed in their eyes. It seemed to be able to control them in that blink of an eye and distort their thoughts. Afterward, Spark glanced at the stone towers around. Flames sparked in his eyes when he snorted. Gillette grinned and released a wisp of soul consciousness to the void between him and Spark, which carried a fierce, sinister energy. Boom! Thunder reverberated in the sky. People with high realms had their soul altars quiver. The mysterious shadows standing inside the stone towers looked at Gillette and Spark. One of the old freaks of the Imperial Dark Tribe is here. Lena was solemn. She frowned and looked at the tower in front of them and then the ground of the mansion. When she observed Haig and Shi Yan, her eyes changed inexplicably. A heavy aura filled the mansion. Spark, Mu Wei, and the others had backed off to the other corners of the place. Xia Zhao, Wu Feng, and the other juniors were forced to stay away. They left the main ground for Shi Yan and Haig. This arranged battle had attracted a discreet audience that hid inside the stone buildings around. They had concealed their auras and commotion. They were here to seriously consider and bet for their future. This battle was going to help them make up their minds, which would break the current balance. The result of this battle would shake the entire cosmos. After that, the real strong forces could finally have their opinions. Haig, why are you here? Shi Yan looked colder. When his soul consciousness checked around, he found many terrifyingly strong auras from the stone towers around. The confuse that had stayed in his mind for a long time was revealed after he found those auras. He didn't understand why the chief of one force of the Bloodthirsty force had requested Shang Qin to take him here. He knew something strange hidden here. And now he got it. He immediately understood. This battle had been arranged beforehand. It was inevitable. He and Haig were the representatives of the two forces' future. They were the criteria for the other forces to compare and make their bet. I've always thought that the God Clan's Elder Committee doesn't have keen eyes, and even the God Clan's ancestral star has some problem. Shi Yan grinned as many secret eyes were studying him. Because as far as I've concerned, you, Haig, aren't eligible to be the future leader of the God Clan. I thought Harson was more qualified. If your ancestral planet and the Elder Committee weren't blind, why would they choose you instead of Harson? Tell me, which strength do you have to be a better choice than Harson? Pausing for seconds, he laughed fiendishly and talked oddly. If Harson were standing in front of me now, I would be gingerly fighting him. And I would be even more anxious. But you, Shi Yan shook his head smilingly and strangely. Everybody could hear his ridiculing. The shadows hiding in the towers felt awkward. This kid has a sharp tongue indeed. However, Haig had just kept silent right from the start. He didn't look reluctant at all. He kept his placid eyes, listening to Shi Yan's harsh words. My mind doesn't have a leak. All of your harsh words will just be in vain. Haig sounded calm and natural. Harson is dead and I am here. It proves I'm stronger than him. When Harson was at his best condition, the Charteris didn't dare to send him to challenge me. It's the clearest evidence that I'm much stronger than him. A holy light curtain arose above Haig's head. The light incipient extent that Haig had created was beautifully dazzling with the soul-purifying divine light shining. 5 stars slowly emerged from his world that carried the deepest powers of the 5 elements including metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. The brilliant divine lights floated between the 5 stars and made them 5 gorgeous massive diamonds. The energy emitted from them was torrential and endless. The 5 orbs slowly spun and carried the principles of nature like a formation that never ceased. They took turns to flash the power of the 5 elements. Many hermits with the profound realm could learn something new by watching the changing power of the 5 elements. Using the power of 5 elements to create the stars and using the divine light to chain them up. Perfect incipient extent and power Upanishad. This lad Haig is mighty. Gillette was so surprised. This man is really outstanding. The God clan does have keen eyes as they've chosen him as the future leader, Lena nodded. The hiding experts of the other forces were also startled when they observed Haig's performance. It was amazing to them, indeed. Chapter 1243, Fusing Power Upanishads. Chapter 1243, Fusing Power Upanishads, _ The 5 stars of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth were spinning above Haig's head and releasing immense energy fluctuations. Haig's eyes became focused. An extremely pure light radiated from his world like a thick sprinkle falling on the 5 stars and increasing their powers. Then, they arranged in a pentagonal formation and grumblingly snatched Shuryen. Refine! Haig shouted. Boom! The 5 stars emitted gold, cyan, white, red, and yellow lights respectively. A flame expanded from the surface of the 5 stars, which was one of the Origin's heaven flames. Also, it combined the heaven flame with terrifying power. It could refine everything. The experts of many forces hiding in the 13 stone towers discolored in shock. It was the form of the high-fused heaven flame. After having fused with the Origin, Haig's attainment of heaven flames had greatly surpassed the other 3. Audrey was astounded as she screamed, "His compatibility with the heaven flame is much deeper than all of us." Gillette nodded with a dark face. If Shuryen doesn't have any special tricks, I'm not on his side in this match. Many people had the same thought as his. The hiding experts of the Thousand Fantasy Sect, the Broken Hall, and the Heaven River Temple, and even Spark and Muwei looked amazed. He was worthy of the title of the best prodigy in the past 1,000 years of the God clan's history. The power that Haig was showing now wasn't less than his great precursors that year. When that precursor had reached incipient God realm, his understanding of the flaming origin wasn't as profound as Haig's. No wonder why the God clan's elders had wholeheartedly nurtured Haig and given him the privilege to hold the supreme position of the God clan in the future. The energy that could burn down everything was released from 5 stars in the sky that covered Shuryen entirely. At this moment, Shuryen's host soul was sending out vibes as if it wanted to move alongside the 5 element stars, forcefully self-destructing. Shuryen believed what Haig had told him. That year when they were on Desolate, Haig had tried to subdue his realm. He could break to incipient God realm, but he had to strenuously press it down, which gave a crack in his mind and prevented him from showing his mighty competence. He finally knew why God clan had considered Haig instead of Harson as their future leader. Haig did have innate talents. On his path of cultivating power Upanishad, he had soon surpassed Harson to enter the state of mind of an incipient God realm expert. Both of his energy and Upanishad was perfect. And today, as he had reached incipient God realm, his state of mind was complete. Different from the experts who had just entered the incipient God realm, he didn't look reluctant or his power unstable. He was like an experienced expert who had been in this realm for a long time. The way he urged and used his supernatural abilities was natural like flowing water in the absolutely well cooperation with his soul. Refine, hissed Haig. A fiery fire was burning high outside the 5 element stars. They suddenly pressed down like 5 holy mountains that could break even space. Explosions reverberated as the void shattered. An earth-shaking momentum. Shuryen took a deep breath, his eyes crimson. A magical intent domain was released. Death Power Upanishad. Then, deep inside the clouds above Black Iron City emitted a cold, deadly aura. The hundreds of thousands of dead warriors whose soul altars had been erased in just a blink now had their dead chi disappear rapidly as if a hand was drawing them. The gray threads of dead chi are all up to dark clouds. Millions of threads with abundant energy from the dead with their fixation in this world were drawn by Shuryen's power Upanishad. Countless threads condensed in the void and made a massive hand. It was like the wrath of angels when people heard pitiful screeching and crying from that hand. Change! Shuryen shouted suddenly. The massive hand with the power of death changed. The thick deadly aura abruptly vanished into thin air as if some magical principle had changed them. Within seconds, the gigantic hand changed dramatically. It was now a blood-dripping hand with an immense vitality that was like the robust energy of a top expert. It was the life energy. This hand had endless vitality while the exquisite drawings in its palm twisted and moved into a sign of life. The massive hand pressed down, grabbed the metal star, and pulled it. Swoosh! 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 The metal star that Haig's incipient extent had nurtured was hurled to the deep area in the sky. It flashed and then disappeared from people's sights. The waves of vitality from the giant hand changed magically once again. Countless starlight dots were moving along the lines of the palm of the hand. The signs of life now blended with the principles of the stars in the sky. The lines in the palm moved by the trajectories of the stars in the galaxy. The changes between life and death. Using the acme of death to generate new life and death energy, it's the truth that fusion of death and life power Upanishads should happen. Perfect power Upanishad fusion. Momentarily, people hear the muffled surprise screams from the stone towers. When the experts from major forces looked at Shuryen now, they had fear in their eyes. No! When the life and death power Upanishad changed, it had the principles from the stars. It's a new form of power fusion. It's unbelievable that this young man could reach such heights. As he can use his powers to such exquisite level, his innate talents and endowment aren't worse than Haig's. No wonder he's Bloodthirsty's successor. This battle is so exciting. The warriors hiding in the stone tower quietly discussed. Their lines of sight shot through countless beams of light and the flood currents of energy to reach Shuryen. Under their gazes, Shuryen was sitting cross-legged on the stone ground of the mansion and looking at the sky with his crimson eyes. Haig was floating in the sky, the 4 stars above his head spinning unceasingly. The heaven flame slowly moved like a surging sea. It covered the massive hand and attempted to burn it. After that attack, the energy fluctuation of the massive hand was reduced massively as if it was burned down. Shuryen sat still. He snorted and then shouted again. Drain! Sizzle! 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 The space behind Shuryen's nape looked as if thousands of lightsabers had just cut it. Space cracks emerged. The brutal energy diffused from those space cracks together with the cold and desolate auras of the dead souls. Those dead auras were dragged here from a far, far away place as if death had just summoned them all of a sudden. The entire sky was dark and quiet. Even the light from the 9 suns couldn't pierce through the thick, gray air mass of death. The deadly air came from space cracks that streamed onto the palm of the massive hand in the sky. The hand then became boosted with more vitality. When the gigantic took in gray rivers of deadly energy, the lines in the palm had become the primal original seal of life that could create lives. Crack! The massive hand disappeared quickly and turned into 4 fists at the same size. Those fists were tight with wild blood chi and surging vitality. The 4 fists aimed at their targets and walloped the 4 stars in Haig's incipient extent. The 4 stars sent out billions of sparks and shot everywhere. They fell to each corner of Black Iron City. Many warriors couldn't dodge the sparks. They were crushed quickly. Not good. These 2 are mad. Do they really want to destroy Black Iron City? Defend. Seal. Tai Dun was floating in the sky above Chamber of Commerce's center in Black Iron City. A small city model suddenly appeared above his head. That city was pitch black, and it was the miniature of Black Iron City. Tai Dun's face was so cold. Both of his hands were moving and making hand seals to the Black Iron City model. As it was receiving the seals from Tai Dun, Black Iron City was awakened like a massive beast. Grumbling noises echoed from the corners of the city. Countless symbols and magical drawings in the city were activated. A powerful barrier was created, and it shielded the entire Black Iron City. When the shock waves from Shuryen and Haig's battle fell from the sky, a barrier of black clouds stopped them and black lightning bolts smashed them. No shockwave could affect the citizens of Black Iron City. After he had set up the defense, Tai Dun paled as he was so tired. He gritted his teeth, his face dark. He then stormed indignantly towards the place where Shuryen and Haig were fighting. It had accelerated beyond his estimation. As the real city master of the Black Iron City, he must ensure the safety of this city. He would never let the battle between Shuryen and Haig affect the city and its citizens. It was the responsibility of a manager of the Chamber of Commerce. He knew if something happened to the city, the president wouldn't show mercy. He would demobilize him from all of his roles and power. At that time, Tai Dun couldn't even survive in any corner of this universe. Boom, 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 boom. When the four massive fists hit the stars, Shiryen and Haig were both shaken hard. However, their eyes were firm and resolute as they all believed that they could get the utmost victory. Change the world. Haig lifted up his head to release a seal, which then had a magical suction force. Metal star that was flung out of Tsunami star was driven back from outer space. Haig looked at the star and hissed as blood trickled down the corners of his mouth. Metal star had suddenly been given endless energy. Also, the ancestral star of the god clan in the faraway ancient god continent was shaken thrice. Mountains collapsed and rivers dried up as if some magical power had been taken from them. Metal star became a shooting meteor that radiated dazzling white light, which was even brighter than the sunlight from the 9 suns above Tsunami star. It carried the power that could even kill warriors at third sky of incipient god realm. Just like a lightning bolt, it struck Shiryen directly. The meteor accelerated. The energy accumulating in the meteor was increasing massively and continuously as if it could thrust through both Black Iron City and Tsunami Star. Many experts hiding in the stone tower could feel the terrifying energy from the meteor when it was still flying far from them. They were all aghast. They finally knew that although the warriors with the origin had only incipient god realm, their real competences could still shake the entire sky. Even the experts who had lived so many years as they didn't have the confidence to resist that kind of energy. They all looked at Shiryen and waited to see how he would counter. Haig had taken the energy of the ancient continent to boost this attack. This was his real murderous strike. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.